Chapter 394. The Ming army had started to attack the city. Guanyin didn't just do it for the sake of showing off. Before the battle, he had indeed done a lot of things. One of the most important things was to learn the management methods of the mercenary army. He recruited a lot of strong captives into the army and then took care of them. He also said that whoever could make a great contribution in the next battle would be rewarded with money, meat, and even an official position. This was also Guanyin's decision to make an exception. Normally, people who were guilty would not even be able to obtain the status of a good citizen. However, to be able to do well, he actually promised an official position and wealth. Just from this point, he had really put in a lot of effort. Not talking about the official position, just the fact that before entering the battlefield, he had given the attacking soldiers a full meal and provided them with enough meat was enough to make many people shed tears of gratitude. The ancients also paid attention to being a ghost with a full stomach before they died. Legend had it that when they went to the netherworld, they would not suffer too much. Now that they had eaten and drunk their fill, for some people, they had no regrets. Using them to attack the city was indeed shocking. Just the first wave of attack had allowed them to rush up to the top of the city tower of Wuxia City. If Zhu Fengyong had not brought people over in time, this wave of attack might have broken through the city. Reality proved that as long as one used the right method, the morale of the army could be used. He called the original Huang bandit captives to the training grounds of the camp. With good wine and meat, General Guanying, whose face was filled with excitement, was planning the attack plan for the next day. Outside the camp, some of the rich people who were originally in the Wuxia house brought good wine and meat to help the army. To them, there were too many immovable assets in the city. The earlier they took down the city, the earlier they could take back what belonged to them and the earlier they could return to their normal lives. Within the mercenary camp, it was extremely quiet. Apart from the normal training of the soldiers, there was no other movement. Inside the large tent, it was not as peaceful as it seemed from the outside. Commander Luo Pe, Commander Lu Zhua and the others were listening to the battle reports from the front lines, waiting for the latest orders from the 6th young master. Everyone was in the tent, listening attentively to the reports from the scouts they had sent out about the scene of the siege today. When they talked about how the Ming army had actively attacked the city, how the first wave of attacks had charged up the city tower without any hesitation, and how they had almost taken down Wuxia City, everyone's face was filled with shock. Since when did the Ming army possess such powerful combat strength? In their eyes, the Ming army was just a bunch of weaklings. They could bully the common people, but when they really faced the bandits, they would probably reveal their cowardly nature. They are not real Ming soldiers. They were chosen from the remaining captives we picked up. Guanying imitated us. After providing them with a few meals, he promised them that they would be promoted and become rich after the siege. Yang Qindong saw that everyone was discussing fervently below, with faces filled with disbelief. Thus, he explained the real reason. After saying all this, Yang Qindong's gaze swept across the crowd and continued, "Reality has proven that arrogance will definitely lead to mistakes. Luckily, this time the Ming army was dealing with the yellow bandits. What if they were targeting us? If we were arrogant, wouldn't we be at a disadvantage?" Facing Yang Qindong's question, the officers first looked at each other. Then the commander of the auxiliary troops, Lu Zhua, stood out and said, "6th young master, we have the most advanced firearms in the world. Even if they were to come, we would not be afraid of them. We will definitely wipe them all out." "Yes, yes." The other officers also nodded their heads, clearly agreeing with this point of view. Yang Qindong, who was sitting at the head of the table, saw that the officers were still full of confidence and could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He said with a somewhat sarcastic tone, "Yes, we have the most advanced firearms in the world. This is our advantage, and perhaps our only advantage. Perhaps once we lose our weapons, we are no different from the Ming army. If we are heavily surrounded, how many bullets can you bring? There will be a day when you run out of bullets. At that time, won't we be surrounded like dumplings and be completely wiped out?" At this moment, the officers were dumbfounded. They suddenly realized that they originally thought that they were invincible, but after analyzing it, it seemed that the truth was not so. Therefore, we are not strong enough. If we want to become the strongest army in the world, it is not enough to just have advanced weapons. We also need a strong heart and a strong will to fight. No matter what kind of enemy we meet, we will not be afraid and will not take a step back. From today onwards, the training will be doubled. Other than firearms, everyone will also have to seriously practice the use of cold weapons and the 3-3 system. In short, no matter what, even if our soldiers are unarmed, they must have the confidence and certainty to defeat any enemy. Yang Chendong suddenly stood up and said with an incomparably sharp voice, "Yes." The officers below all stood up. The sixth young master had pointed out everyone's shortcomings, so they had to correct them. This was not as simple as following orders. At the crucial moment, a well-trained army would save their own lives. After having a unified order, the military camp began to get busy. Other than the necessary personnel on duty, the other members of the First Guard Squad went down to the various platoons to teach the soldiers close combat tactics. For example, Tiger's Mane, Qiu Vi, Ba Daojiang, Pang Yu, and the others. Even Wang Yong, who had just joined the auxiliary soldiers, began to get busy. They all became instructor-like figures and began to walk into the military camp. They faced the normal soldiers and taught them the way of fighting. The Ming army and mercenaries were all hurrying their preparations. In the hall of the Wuzhou government yamen, the bandit leader Huang Yuliang was currently raging. He, who had gathered all the generals, first killed the general in charge of defending the city in front of everyone. Then, he rewarded Zhu Fengyong, who had provided assistance. Afterwards, his anger seemed to have subsided greatly. Sitting on the seat of the former Wuzhou Zhizhou, he looked at everyone and said, "You have to know that once the city gate is broken, we will all die. Even if it is for your own safety, I ask that everyone do their best. I also ask that everyone follow General Zhu Fengyong's example." "Yes, young Master Huang." The high-ranking officers and leaders standing below all agreed. However, there were only a few people who truly listened to these words. Even Huang Yuliang did not have much confidence in his heart. "You can all leave. Manage your brothers well and be prepared to go up the city gate tower to fight at any time. General Zhu, stay." Waving his hand, Huang Yuliang had an expression of tiredness and irritation. "We will leave." After the other generals all cupped their fists and said this, they left in 2s and 3s. As they walked, they whispered something. It was clear that they were analyzing the situation in front of them. Some of them were probably even spreading words that were unfavorable to the bandit army. If this were in the past, no one would dare to do all of this. However, 2 of the 4 heavenly kings were dead. 1 was missing, and only 1 was left. In this situation, Huang Yuliang's control over the army was clearly not as good as before. At this moment, it seemed that he could only allow these people to casually say whatever they wanted. There was nothing he could do. Everyone left, leaving only Huang Yuliang, 2 guards, and Zhu Fengyong standing in the middle of the hall. "General Zhu, your performance today was very good. I am very satisfied." Huang Yuliang sighed as he looked at Zhu Fengyong, who was still able to organize a military force to fight against the Ming dynasty in this chaotic world and emerge victorious. "This is all due to young master's good fortune. This general does not dare to claim credit." Zhu Fengyong did not forget to flatter Huang Yuliang. "Ha ha ha, good. General Zhu is still the most loyal. This young master can rest assured when doing things." Huang Yuliang, who was extremely comfortable with this flattery, laughed heartily. Soon after, his tone changed. "General Zhu, this young master intends to hand over the task of guarding the city to you. How confident are you?" Zhu Fengyong, who was asked this question, was stunned at first, as if he was not mentally prepared. Then he half knelt and said, "Many thanks to young master for thinking so highly of me. Even if you hand over the defense of the city to me, I will do my best." In Huang Yuliang's eyes, Zhu Fengyong's words of loyalty naturally made him happy. However, what he valued more was how confident Zhu Fengyong was in defending the city. Thus he asked again, "General Zhu, you still haven't said. If I hand over the defense of Wuzhou to you, will you be able to defend it?" Zhu Fengyong slowly raised his head and looked at Huang Yuliang. He said with a serious face, "In reply to young master, I will not be able to defend it." "What?" Originally, Huang Yuliang thought that even if he could not defend it, Zhu Fengyong would say some tactful words. For example, he would do his best, or he would hold on for a while, etc. He never expected such a direct answer, which caught Huang Yuliang off guard. "You will not be able to defend it? I have 60,000 soldiers, So why can't I defend a small Wuzhou prefecture? Huang Yuliang asked unhappily. Young master, please forgive me for speaking so bluntly. You also said that we are in a small Wuzhou prefecture. If we defend it for a long time, we will run out of food and water. If that's the case, there will be chaos before anyone else attacks. If that's the case, how can we defend the city? Hearing Zhu Fengyong's serious answer, Huang Yuliang's emotions gradually stabilized. Okay, then what do you think? Young master, based on my thoughts, we must give up on the Wuzhou prefecture. Give up? Continue. Huang Yuliang frowned as he listened. Yes. After Zhu Fengyong agreed, he said, the art of war says that if we defend for a long time, we will definitely lose. Without reinforcements, defending the Wuzhou prefecture to the death is the worst plan. There might even be no hope. Why not give up on this place and find a new place to settle down? It's like arranging for Ruhong Hai to find a new place to settle down and develop. Internally, we can guard the city strictly and delay the Ming army's attack speed. At the same time, we also have to deal with the internal problems. This humble general is not talented, but I have arranged for some people to do some investigations. I found that some generals have long wanted to join the Ming army. If such people stay by our side, not only will they not be of help, but they will also become our cancer and hinder our development. Chapter 395. Zhu Fengyong spoke with fervor and assurance, and Huang Yuliang listened very seriously. He only stopped talking after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. Then, he stared ahead without blinking, waiting for his young master to make the final decision. From Zhu Fengyong's words, Huang Yuliang knew that Zhu Fengyong had put in a lot of effort. At least, he had carefully considered their escape route. More importantly, Zhu Fengyong's words were clear and logical, and he had a plan for how to proceed step by step. This made Huang Yuliang very confident. An army was most afraid of doing things without a goal. This kind of army was like a headless fly, and was destined to have problems. From this it could be seen how important a correct direction was. Huang Yuliang had already secretly approved of Zhu Fengyong's plan, but he still needed to ask for more details. Yes, General Zhu, please stand up. You said that you could let Heavenly King Ru find a new location, but do you have a plan? In reply to young master, I do have a plan. If possible, we can let Heavenly King Ru lead the army to the vicinity of Gaozhou Prefecture. That place is vast and sparsely populated, and the territory is large. There aren't any important towns around it, so it's beneficial for us to move around there. Once the time is right, we can raise our flag again and gather a powerful army. Zhu Fengyong, who was already prepared, explained the plan in one breath. Gaozhou Prefecture? Hearing this location, Huang Yuliang hurriedly searched for it on the map. Then, he said with a suspicious expression, isn't there also a Ming army in Gaozhou Prefecture? Previously, Heavenly King Sun Jianglong's army was defeated there. That's right, it's there. However, just like young master said, if you didn't expect us to go there, then the Ming army would be even more surprised. Taking them by surprise is in accordance with the art of war. We will have a chance to appear there when they least expect it. It's precisely because it's not far from the sea that we can escape into the sea if things go wrong. This way, the southern Ming army, which has already restricted the sea, can't do anything to us. When that time comes, we'll be like fish in the sea. Zhu Fengyong nodded heavily with a confident expression. Take them by surprise. Take them by surprise. Huang Yuliang muttered to himself. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he slammed his fist on the desk. All right, let's take them by surprise and kill our way out. How about this? General Zhu's suggestion just now will be approved by this young master. I'll leave the matter of city defense to you. You will also be in charge of those disloyal generals. At the same time, you will also arrange for Heavenly King Ru to secretly attack Gao Prefecture. I hope you won't disappoint me. Otherwise, you know the consequences. The reason he said that he would not be disappointed was because the failure of Zhu Fengyong's policy of attacking everywhere had not only caused the strength of the Yellow Bandit army to shrink greatly, it had also implicated Sun Jianglong and Cui Yan, the two heavenly kings, to die in battle or disappear. This time, he listened to Zhu Fengyong's plan. If something went wrong again, then he would have to doubt Zhu Fengyong's intention. How intelligent was Zhu Fengyong? He naturally understood the hidden meaning in Huang Yuliang's words. He immediately cupped his fist and said, "I'm willing to guarantee with my life that as long as Heavenly King Ru is careful, once you suddenly appear in front of Gao Prefecture City, no one will be able to stop you." "All right, haha. Then this young master will take advantage of General Zhu's auspicious words." Huang Yuliang's laughter rang out in the hall. He seemed to be in a good mood at this moment. Huang Yuliang trusted Zhu Fengyong again. Even though he knew that there were risks in doing so, he didn't have any better methods to deal with the current situation. Thus, he might as well give it another try. Of course, he didn't completely trust Zhu Fengyong. He still arranged for a group of personal guards to follow Zhu Fengyong and watch his every move. If they discovered that Zhu Fengyong was doing anything improper, they would probably raise their blades and cut off his head. Zhu Fengyong didn't show any signs of resentment towards the fact that someone was watching him. On the contrary, he even entertained these people with good food and drinks. Furthermore, he would bring them along whenever he did something. He acted as if he was innocent and wasn't afraid of being investigated. After gaining Huang Yuliang's trust on the surface, Zhu Fengyong started to do things boldly. First, he captured some of the generals in the Huang bandit army who weren't ready to fight. Then, he stripped them of their military power and made them his subordinates. At the same time, he strengthened the defense of the city and made it look like he was going to fight to the death with the Ming army. Zhu Fengyong's deployment was well-planned and orderly. This caused the Ming army to face a lot of trouble in the next few sieges. There were many casualties in the fierce battle above and below Shuangfang City. In the end, they managed to protect the Wuzhou prefecture and didn't let the Ming army enter the city. With the city protected, Huang Yuliang was naturally much more satisfied with Zhu Fengyong. At this moment, news came from Heavenly King Ru. They followed Zhu Fengyong's suggestion and suddenly appeared outside Gaozhou Prefecture. As expected, they didn't spend much effort to retake the city. With this, they found a new path of retreat for the Huang bandit army. After hearing this news, Huang Yuliang was naturally elated and had a higher opinion of Zhu Fengyong. As Gaozhou was taken down, the Huang bandit army had a path of retreat. Huang Yuliang started to make arrangements to leave Wuzhou Prefecture. For this, he once again called Zhu Fengyong over and asked him for a plan. After Zhu Fengyong, who was covered in blood and killing intent, entered the Great Hole, there was already a seat waiting for him. According to Huang Yuliang, after this battle, he would promote Zhu Fengyong to one of the 4 heavenly kings. "Thank you, young master," Zhu Fengyong said gratefully. "Haha, Fengyong, there is no need to be angry. Now, can you tell me how we are going to retreat safely?" Huang Yuliang said with a smile. "Yes, young master. This is what I think." Below Wuzhou City, Guan Ying and Ma Wei rode on their horses tiredly. Looking at the Wuzhou prefecture that they had not been able to take down and the corpses on the battlefield, their faces were filled with doubt and regret. They could not understand why the seemingly unstable Wuzhou city had almost taken the city in the first attack and still remained standing under the numerous fierce attacks they launched. On the contrary, they had lost soldiers and generals. Putting aside the fact that most of the Huang bandit captives had died in battle, even the original 4,000 Ming soldiers had lost close to 3,000 men. Why had they still not taken the city? After 7 or 8 sieges, including the captives, they had 8,000 men. But now, they did not even have 2,000 men left. Most of them were injured. This was a result that Guan Ying and Ma Wei could not accept. Especially the latter, who had already given the order to stop the siege. Ma Wei was the commander of the Guangdong Guards. No matter if he was a general or a commander, he had to have soldiers under his feet to be able to use his power. But now, he had almost used up everything, so it was no wonder that he would suddenly give the order to stop the siege. Guan Ying did not understand this matter and had even argued with Ma Wei because of it. In his words, he had lost a lot of men and was under a lot of pressure. The Huang bandit army was also not having a good time. Now, it was up to who could last longer. Perhaps after another fierce siege, they would be able to take down the city tower and take down the Wuzhou prefecture. Ma Wei shook his head and did not agree with Guan Ying's words. Disregarding everything else, even if they took down the Wuzhou prefecture, with the amount of military power he had, it would be difficult for them to do much. They probably did not even have enough people to watch over the captives, so how could they talk about defending the city? Ma Wei very happily rejected Guan Ying's idea of attacking the city again. He prepared to rest and build up strength. He would wait for the internal strife within Wuxia City to happen as the Imperial envoy had said so that he could benefit from it. However, just as this plan was prepared, an unexpected situation occurred. The city gates of Wuxia Prefecture suddenly opened. Thousands of people holding all kinds of weapons charged out and charged into the unprepared Ming army camp. Everything that happened so suddenly was completely out of their expectations. Caught unprepared, they were actually caught off guard by the Huang bandit army. Within the camp, many of the injured soldiers were killed. Even Guan Ying, because he could not retreat in time, was entangled with people and had an additional knife wound on his body. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, the mercenary army moved out. They held the 9-5 in their hands and shot at the Huang bandit army from a distance. Immediately after, thousands of auxiliary soldiers and temporary auxiliary soldiers suddenly charged out. Under the powerful aura, they quickly crumbled the morale of the Huang bandit army and defeated them in the Ming army camp. After the Huang bandit army soldiers who had left the city were killed or captured, the mercenary army directly charged toward Wuxia City. Unexpectedly, it went very smoothly. Other than a few banners that the Huang bandit army had stuck into the city tower, all of the Huang bandit army had disappeared. Even most of the common people in the city had been taken away. The Wuxia Prefecture, which was almost empty, was taken down so easily. However, it was clear that Yang Chendong was not satisfied. He called over Guan Ying and Ma Wei to talk about continuing the pursuit. After the Huang bandit army has lost the Wuxia Prefecture, they have no place to stay. This is the best time to pursue and kill them. Otherwise, once they find a new place and continue to develop, it will not be long before they rise up again and become a problem for the court. Faced with Yang Chendong's righteous words, Guan Ying and Ma Wei lowered their heads. How could the two of them not understand this logic? It was just that right now, they only had 1,000 soldiers. Even if General Pingle brought a few hundred people, there were less than 2,000. They could still defend Wuxia Prefecture and calm down the situation here, but if they wanted to chase after someone, they really didn't have the strength to do so. The two of them did not speak. Yang Chendong pretended not to understand and asked, "What? Do the two generals have any objections?" No. However, after attacking Wuxia City for the past few days, our vitality has been greatly damaged. Now, we lack soldiers and are trapped. It is time for us to reorganize. We really do not have the strength to chase after the Huang bandit army. This heavy responsibility will probably fall on the shoulders of the mercenary army and the Imperial envoy. Ma Wei and Guan Ying spoke with pleading expressions. Chapter 396. So it's like this. Alright, since this Imperial envoy has promised the Emperor, then I will definitely completely destroy the Huang bandit army. Thus, we will leave first. If the two generals have finished organizing the military affairs, it won't be too late to catch up. Yang Chendong only pretended to be troubled. After a slight hesitation, he immediately agreed. Naturally, Ma Wei and Guan Ying were overjoyed that Yang Chendong agreed so readily. In order to express their sincerity, they even sent some of the food in their army to the mercenary camp. Then they watched as the mercenary army left Wuxia to chase after the Huang bandit army. Sigh, no matter what, the matter of the Huang bandit army has been taken care of. Soon, we will be able to report to the Emperor. Ma Wei muttered to himself. When Guan Ying heard these words, his self-reproach lessened a lot. What the two of them did not know was that all of this was Yang Chendong's plan. Zhu Fengyong's action of leaving the city was one of his plans. The reason why he did this was because he had an even bigger goal, which was to completely destroy the Huang bandit army. The development of Xianxia City and Ryukyu Island needed people the most. Only with enough people could one do more things, expand one's army, and expand one's own power. It was because of this point that Yang Chendong's plan for the Huang bandit army was not to destroy them, but to make them prisoners. It was only about Ying and Ma Wei. They might be able to get some of the captives to become soldiers, but to get all of them to become their captives and be sent to Ryukyu Island was basically impossible. In order to achieve this goal, the first thing to do was to exhaust the Ming army's power so that they had no time to worry about other things. Thus, he sent a letter to Zhu Fengyong to use war to exhaust the Ming army's power. Using this, Zhu Fengyong could send some of the Huang bandit army's members who did not obey him or had bad attitudes to the battlefield and use the Ming army to eliminate them. Facts had proven that this plan was appropriate and successful. During these days of defending the city, Zhu Fengyong had received Huang Yuliang's trust and delegated power to him. Taking this opportunity, he had successfully eliminated the dissidents. In the end, he had sent those who didn't listen to him or those who were truly evil to the defense of the city tower. Most of the people in the Huang bandit army were people who were forced to join. They were not loyal to young Master Huang and did not have a sense of belonging to the Huang bandit army. As long as they had the right opportunity, they could become good citizens again. When they reached Ryukyu Island, they might even become useful talents there. After the plan was successfully implemented, Yang Chendong led the mercenaries out of the Wuzhou prefecture and headed towards Gaozhou. Even when they were leaving the city, they still brought the gratitude of Ma Wei and General Guan Ying. Of course, in Yang Chendong's eyes, the more benefits he got from others, the better it would be for him. Quickly inform Battalion Commander Wu Shang that we can close the encirclement and lock onto the target. After giving the secret order to Tiger's Mane, Yang Chendong turned around to look at the army in his hands. With Kong Chuanxin's Cold Front 3rd Battalion and an auxiliary battalion, the army he led had grown even stronger. Adding on the temporary auxiliary soldiers he had recruited along the way, the total number of soldiers had increased to nearly 7,000. Perhaps an army of 7,000 might not be much in the eyes of others, but if these people were mercenaries, they would be able to fight against an army of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Moreover, they would have a high chance of winning. Huang Yuliang listened to Zhu Fengyong's suggestion and first sent his only heavenly king, General Ru Honghai, to attack Gaozhou prefecture. After occupying the city, he gave up on the entire Wuzhou prefecture and led most of the citizens to Gaozhou city in the southeast. Huang Yuliang didn't understand why he had to lead 40,000 citizens in Wuzhou prefecture. However, because Zhu Fengyong's method of dealing with the enemy was very timely, he didn't ask any further. Now that they were out of Wuzhou prefecture, the remaining 50,000 Huang bandits and 40,000 citizens were walking on the official road. Only then did he have the time to ask for the reason and order someone to call Zhu Fengyong in front of him. General Zhu, you have worked hard this time. You have done well and this young master is very satisfied. However, why did you bring the citizens of Wuzhou prefecture? General, what can you tell me? Huang Yuliang first expressed his admiration and then asked the question in his heart. Young master, you are very knowledgeable. You must have heard that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. If you want to change the world, you must first obtain the support of the citizens because they are the foundation of a country. This is why I brought them this time. There are also 2 benefits. Zhu Fengyong, who had been prepared, didn't use much effort to answer this question. 2 benefits? What are they? Huang Yuliang became spirited and asked curiously. First, young master didn't forget to take the citizens with you when you left the city. This is enough to prove that you have the citizens in your eyes and treat them as your own people. If this matter spreads out, won't young master's good name spread far and wide? This is a way to buy people's hearts without spending money. Second, when an army marches, there are always things that require manpower. For example, transporting grain, cooking, and washing for the soldiers. We men can't do these things well. With these people it means we have a lot of free labor. Why not? With their hands free, our soldiers can focus on traveling and recover their energy. Once we fight with the Ming army, they will be able to use their strength better. Isn't this the best of both worlds? General, we have robbed so many cities. Right now, we don't lack grain and even have money left over. Isn't it a good thing that we can use the extra grain to get so many people to work for us? As for when we don't have enough grain in the future, we can think of a way to get them to leave. At that time, no matter where they go, they will think of young master's kindness and want to eat and wear warm clothes with you. If that's the case, once they hear about your news, who wouldn't want to come and seek refuge with you? Why would we worry about not having enough soldiers? Wouldn't the army grow stronger? Zhu Fengyong said a lot in a row. Every time he mentioned something, Huang Yuliang felt his eyes light up. Good. General Zhu is indeed far-sighted. With General Zhu, there is no need to worry about the world being unstable. Like this, from today onwards, General Zhu will be one of the 4 heavenly kings under this young master. Hearing this reward, Zhu Fengyong's heart was filled with joy. However, he still pretended to be grateful. Many thanks for young master's nurturing. Fengyong will definitely do his best to repay young master's kindness. Haha, well said, well said. Huang Yuliang laughed heartily. He was happy that he had obtained such a loyal and capable subordinate. However, he didn't know that from now on, his little life was in the hands of others. Zhu Fengyong had officially become one of the 4 heavenly kings. This made his authority grow unprecedentedly. Many military leaders used the opportunity to congratulate him to express their loyalty. As a result, his influence in the Huang bandit army grew larger and larger. In fact, he could even make decisions on many matters without needing to report to Huang Yuliang. All of this gave Zhu Fengyong more support for his plan to complete the 6th young master. Gaozhou Prefecture. After Heavenly King Ru Honghai used a surprise attack to occupy this place, he gradually became arrogant. As one of the old 4 heavenly kings, Ru Honghai wasn't as brave as Gung Jun, nor as tall as Cui Yen. He wasn't as familiar with naval battles as Sun Jianglong. He was able to become one of the heavenly kings mostly because of his obedient personality. Among the 4 heavenly kings, the one that Huang Yuliang trusted the most was probably the ugly and average-looking Ru Honghai. There was no one else. His luck wasn't bad and he actually managed to survive until now. He even took over Gaozhou Prefecture and found a path of retreat for his young master. This merit could be said to be great. There was also news in the army that when young Master Huang arrived at Gaozhou Prefecture, Ru Honghai would become the leader of the 4 heavenly kings. This kind of rumor naturally reached Ru Honghai's ears. It gave him a feeling of complacency, as if he didn't put the heroes of the world in his eyes. Due to his arrogance, the defense of Gaozhou Prefecture became lax. Or it could be said that Ru Honghai never thought that someone would target him. After all, from the news from the scouts, there weren't any Ming army forces near Gaozhou Prefecture. But in reality, there was a Cold Vanguard unit in Gaozhou City that could take his life. The leader of this unit was the Cold Vanguard 2nd Regiment 1st Battalion's commander Wu Shang. In such a large city, as long as there were sufficient preparations, the existence of 400 people could be concealed without revealing themselves. Not to mention, these 400 people were all well-trained elites who had learned the art of camouflage. Previously, the Gaozhou Prefecture was breached by Wu Shang and his men, which gave him ample time to hide. When Ru Honghai brought the Huang bandits into the city, the auxiliary camp retreated according to plan. Only Shao Prefecture's General Yu Guang and less than 1,000 people were left here to resist for a while before they couldn't leave. The effective resistance still existed. This strengthened Ru Honghai's belief that the Ming army was inferior to him. It also created enough opportunity for Wu Shang and his men to stay. As Ru Honghai's troops occupied Gaozhou Prefecture for longer and longer, the time for Wu Shang's Cold Vanguard unit to act was also getting closer and closer. Inform everyone it's tonight. Finally, when the scouts of the Security Bureau infiltrated Gaozhou Prefecture and successfully contacted Wu Shang, the orders from above were also delivered. The Cold Vanguard unit was about to act. Chapter 397. A total of 4 companies of Lung Feng, in addition to Wu Shang and the other 400 people, they dug out the 9-5 spear and camouflage uniforms that they had hidden in the courtyards and began their night raid. The Lang Feng's movements were orderly and meticulous. Every Lung Feng had their own position. For example, who was in charge of dealing with the sentries, who was in charge of stopping the attack, who was in charge of seizing the city gate, who was in charge of capturing Ru Honghai, etc. All of the plans were assigned to every soldier. As a result, when it was midnight, more than 400 people walked out of the alleys and ran towards their respective targets. The Huang bandit army was caught off guard and did not expect the danger to come from within. In front of the meticulous, agile and well-armed Lung Feng, most people did not even have the ability to fight back. Among the bodyguards protecting Ru Honghai, there were a few who had decent martial arts skills. Because of their high alertness, they were the first to notice that the atmosphere was not right and sent out a warning signal. Unfortunately, there were too few such experts. Even if they sent out a warning signal, the news could not spread out of the courtyard before the Lang Feng surrounded them began to move. Battalion Commander Wu Shang took the lead and kicked open the door with the 95 style. Soon after, a series of gunshots rang out and the 3 strong men who had a foundation in martial arts obediently lay on the ground. When the Lang Feng rushed into the bedroom in the courtyard, they pulled out the trembling Ru Honghai from under the bed. Following Ru Honghai's capture, without a leader, the Huang bandit army in the city fell into chaos. At this moment, the Lang Feng hiding in the dark suddenly made their move. Along with the loud shouts from the city gate, the seemingly majestic auxiliary barracks approached. Finally, the barracks exploded. No matter what kind of army it was, once the barracks exploded, it signaled the beginning of a disaster and defeat. The soldiers fled in all directions. The soldiers did not know their generals, and the generals did not know their soldiers. Once chaos erupted, it was hard for anyone to stop it. Even if the generals were to shout now, there was nothing they could do. There was no way to reverse the situation. Even the elite cold vanguard soldiers were helpless against the explosion of the camp. The only thing they could do was to observe the surroundings. Once they discovered any Huang bandits trying to rush out of the camp, they would fire a warning shot. If they couldn't stop them, they would start shooting. In short, they wouldn't allow such chaos to rush out of the camp. The explosion of the camp also indicated that the defeat of the Huang bandit army defending Gaozhou City was set in stone. At this point, Huang Yuliang's path of retreat was completely sealed. At this time, Huang Yuliang was leading 50,000 bandits and 40,000 commoners 80 miles away from Gaozhou City. In the past, with their current marching speed, they would be able to reach Gaozhou Prefecture in 2 to 3 days if they were fast. Once they met up with Ru Honghai's army, they would be able to gather a large force once again. However, all of this was destroyed tonight. Huang Yuliang, who was sleeping, was also woken up by the bodyguards. What's going on? Huang Yuliang suddenly opened his eyes with a face full of fear. Young master, General Zhu reported that the scouts discovered a large number of Ming army soldiers 30 miles behind us. Furthermore, they are the most powerful Ming army soldiers wearing camouflage uniforms. The bodyguard said with a slightly hurried voice. There's such a thing? Didn't we use up a lot of their resources when they attacked the Wuzhou prefecture? Why do they still have the strength to chase after us? Huang Yuliang instinctively said this before quickly shutting his mouth. The bodyguard had already said very clearly that the Ming army soldiers that came were wearing camouflage uniforms. It was said that they were the helpers that the southern Ming emperor, Zhu Qizhen, had invited. Since they weren't normal Ming army soldiers, this kind of army shouldn't have been exhausted. Only then would they have the strength to chase after him. After understanding this point, Huang Yuliang hurriedly put on his jacket. Before he could walk out of the tent, Zhu Fengyong, who was wearing armor, had already walked in. Young master, there are pursuers behind us. It seems that we have been targeted. Right now, we need to hurry to Gaozhou City. Is there no way to stop them? Gao Yuliang asked, thinking that he would deal with whatever came his way. It's very difficult. This army has extremely advanced firearms. They can injure our brothers from far away. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult to stop them. When he said this, Zhu Fengyong revealed a defeated expression. Even if Huang Yuliang saw this, he wouldn't doubt that he had tried his best. However, there was still no solution. If that's the case, then let's go quickly. Once we reach Gaozhou Prefecture, we should be safe with the sturdy city as our cover. For the sake of his own safety, Huang Yuliang made the decision to travel through the night. Yes, this general will go and instruct the army to hurry. When Zhu Fengyong agreed, a trace of joy flashed across his eyes. Everything was just as the sixth young master had imagined. This Huang Yuliang was truly extremely afraid of death. Since this was the case, the following process would be much easier to complete. In the dark night, the army that stretched for dozens of miles set off. From time to time, all sorts of curses could be heard from the crowd. It could be seen that both the bandits and the commoners were somewhat resistant to traveling in the middle of the night. Gaozhou City. When the sun rose, the commotion in the camp was basically over. After a night of torment, the Huang bandits were also tired. In addition, they could clearly see the surroundings after the sun rose. The chaotic environment became less and less chaotic until finally, it was completely peaceful. After everything calmed down, Heavenly King Ru Honghai was escorted out of the camp by Wu Shang and Lang Feng. When they saw that their general was captured and they were completely surrounded, the Huang bandits had no choice but to surrender. The captives threw down their weapons and walked out of the camp in batches. Wu Sheng's face was filled with joy. In just this battle alone, they had captured about 15,000 Huang bandits. Most of the people here were strong and healthy. One could imagine how many things they could do when they reached Ryukyu Island. However, Just as a smile appeared on his face, a soldier came to report that the Xiaozhou general Yu Guang, who had disappeared for a while, had returned. He was currently waiting at the government office. Oh, the speed of picking peaches is quite fast. Fine, since they want it, I'll give it to them. However, if they want to take these benefits from me, Wu Shang, then they won't be able to do so. Let's see what kind of price they can pay. There was a glimmer of light in Wu Shang's eyes. He had expected that the southern Ming army would appear early in the morning. Even if the other party did not appear, according to the 6th young master's plan, Gaozhou Prefecture would have to be handed over. However, taking the initiative to hand it over was one matter. If the other party wanted to take it back, it was another matter. If Wu Shang didn't use this opportunity to slaughter his opponent, how could he have the ability to be the commander of the main force? In front of Gaozhou City's government office, Wu Shang brought a group of Lung Feng and saw Yu Guang in armor. Yu Guang was originally riding on a tall horse, but the moment he saw Wu Shang appear, he consciously jumped off the horse and greeted him with a smile. Commander Wu, it's been hard on you. Both sides had worked together before. They had forced Sun Jianglong, one of the 4 heavenly kings, into the sea near Gaozhou City and Laizhou City. They could be considered old acquaintances. However, this time, Yu Guang was here to snatch the credit. His expression was naturally a bit unnatural. Oh, isn't this General Yu Guang? A while ago, I couldn't find you and thought that you had sacrificed your life for the country. Because of this, I felt really bad for a while. Now that I see that you're fine, I'm very happy. After these words were spoken, Yu Guang's face alternated between red and white. Last time, when Ru Honghai brought his army to Gaozhou City, Wu Xing directly said that he was no match for him and led his army to leave. Yu Guang didn't listen and defended the city for a day. In the end, because he didn't have enough troops, he escaped from Gaozhou City. It was after that there was a gap between the two of them. Now that Wu Shang said this to him, he was just venting his anger. Yu Guang, who knew that he was in the wrong, didn't listen to Wu Shang when they defended the city last time. Now that he wanted to take advantage of the situation, his expression was naturally very unnatural. However, when he thought about how he could take the credit for taking down Gaozhou City, it would greatly make up for the crime of losing Gaozhou City last time. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, Yu Guang will remember Commander Wu's concern for me. This time, I still have to thank you for helping Nanming take down Gaozhou City. Oh, this isn't a big deal. If you're willing, I can give you the credit for taking down Gaozhou City and even capturing Ru Honghai alive. However, General, you should also know that many of our brothers have died in this battle. The compensation for their families cannot be neglected. Wu Shang said in an overbearing manner. When he heard that Wu Shang was willing to give him all the credit, Yu Guang had long become excited. Good. How about we go into the government office to talk? Good, General Yu, please. Commander Wu, please. The two of them entered the Gaozhou City government office one after the other. What followed was naturally a round of bargaining. After 4 hours of negotiation, Wu Xing took away 15,000 captives and 200,000 taels of silver from Yu Guang. The amount of silver wasn't much. Furthermore, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to borrow it from the rich gentry in Gaozhou City. Even though Ru Honghai had already entered Gaozhou City, this place had also been visited by another heavenly king, Sun Jianglong. However, as the local tyrants, which one of them wasn't a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows? Many of them had already buried the silver before the situation turned bad. It wasn't something that the Huang bandits could find in a short period of time. However, Yu Guang used his identity as a general of Nanming to negotiate with the rich gentry, and quickly obtained 200,000 silver. Chapter 398. Wu Sheng left after getting the person and the money. At this moment, he still had more important things to do. This was also the most important and final part of the plan. It was very crucial. If not for this, how could a mere 200,000 taels of silver be enough to send him off? Gaozhou City had already changed hands. Huang Yuliang was completely unaware of this matter. It was only when the sky turned dark on the second day that the scouts at the front reported back that Heavenly King Ru Honghai had been captured by the Southern Ming Empire's army. After running for an entire day and night, whether it was the generals, soldiers or commoners, they were all extremely tired. According to Huang Yuliang's thoughts, He had to get a good night's sleep no matter what. However, when this news came, he completely panicked. He, who had no way out, suddenly lost all hope. At this time, Zhu Fengyong also came in front of Huang Yuliang. "Young master, this matter is sudden, but we still have a way out." "What other way is there?" Hearing that there was still a way, Huang Yuliang, who had lost all hope for the future, regained a trace of vitality. "Young master, Gaozhou City has been occupied, but we still have Liezhou City. If not, we can still take a ship to the sea. Right now, the most important thing is to immediately arrange for people to scout the way. Also, arrange for people to buy ships with gold and silver. As long as we are on the sea, the southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us." Zhu Fengyong said. "That's right. As long as we are on the sea, the southern Ming army will not be able to do anything to us." "Good, let's do that." Huang Yuliang had completely lost his ability to judge. He really did whatever Zhu Fengyong told him to do. He immediately ordered people to take a lot of gold and silver and prepare to transport it out. Then, he arranged for 2,000 trusted soldiers to scout the way to Liezhou City and the sea. These 2,000 people were extremely trusted by Huang Yuliang. Most of them had followed his father, Huang Xiaoyang, into the army and were the most trustworthy existences. Even when he was in trouble, he didn't send these people out. But now, in order to find a suitable escape route, he finally sent these people out. Following the departure of these 2,000 soldiers, the only ones that Huang Yuliang could truly trust or be willing to risk their lives for him were the dozens of bodyguards around him. Because of the sudden incident, the original plan of having a good night's rest was disrupted. The army had no choice but to continue on their journey. For a moment, the curses in the army grew even louder, but this was no longer a problem that Huang Yuliang was concerned about. 30 li behind the Huang bandit army, the cold vanguard army had already stopped. They began to set up camp and cook. With the speed of the Lang Feng soldiers, it was not difficult for them to catch up with the Huang bandits. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to obtain nearly 100,000 gold coins. In order to drive them into the pocket, Yang Chendong did not ask the warriors to travel through the night. Instead, he followed them at a leisurely pace. When it was time to eat, one would eat. When it was time to sleep, one would naturally need to sleep. Not only that, in the military camp, other than the necessary troops who were responsible for keeping watch at night, the other soldiers also had a party after dinner. Third Madame Xue and Miss Su Maner also offered up songs and dances. It was truly a joyous scene. In the process of chasing an opponent, it was probably rare to see an army like Yang Chendong who could be at a leisurely pace and even have a party in the military camp. From this, it could be seen that the result of this battle had probably been predicted by the youngest loyal and daring general of the Ming dynasty. Furthermore, everything was developing smoothly according to his plan. It was late at night. The soldiers who were having a party had all returned to their tents to rest. However, some of the tents were still lit. For example, in the tent that Su Maner was in, the lights were not extinguished. Not only that, but the master and servant were sitting there and chatting without any signs of sleepiness. "Miss, this Imperial envoy is truly carefree. This is war. Yet he is not in a hurry to travel. He even has this party that he speaks of. What is he thinking?" Servant Xiao Yun thought about how during the party, Yang Chendong was beside the bonfire and dancing with the soldiers under him. She felt that it was unbelievable. In her impression, all of the important officials were dignified and serious. They had a straight face every day as if they had the words, "Do not get close to strangers," written all over their faces. How could there be anyone like Yang Chendong, who would be so close to normal soldiers? However, thinking about it from another perspective, this imperial envoy was truly too young. It was not strange for him to have such actions. However, when she thought about how this kind of person was the target of the master and servant, someone they had to kill, she couldn't help but feel a wave of self-blame and depression in her heart. In the end, Xiao Yun was still young. Although she knew what her mission was, she was still young and could easily be influenced and changed by the surrounding environment. In the beginning, she had heard that this imperial envoy was very lustful and would not shrink from any crime. Originally, there was no burden in killing this kind of person. Not to mention, once the goal was achieved, the young miss would be freed. With all these benefits, Xiao Yun agreed without much thought. However, after these days of contact, she realized that the truth was different from what she had heard. Let's just say that young Chendong was lustful. It had been nearly 2 months since the young miss had taken the initiative to send herself to his door, but young Chendong had not done anything frivolous. He even turned a blind eye to it. This was completely different from the lustful person that was said to be. Not to mention a lustful person, with Sumaner's beauty, even an ordinary man would not be able to remain indifferent. This could be seen from the cold eyes that looked at the young miss. However, young Chendong was able to control himself. Not only did he never show anything, but he also had very little contact. On the contrary, he took great care of them in their daily lives. In the past 2 months, Xiao Yun had come into contact with many new things, such as toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, perfume, mirror, and all kinds of beautiful clothes. Yang Chendong had sent many people to deliver these things, but he did not show himself. Xiao Yun couldn't understand all of this. She couldn't understand. In fact, not only the maid, Xiao Yun, but even the master Sumaner, could not figure it out. As the head of the courtesans by the Qinhuai River, she usually came into contact with all kinds of men. Among them, there were princes and nobles with good family backgrounds, some young masters who boasted of their talents, and some Casanova young master with rich families. But no matter what, there was something in the way these people looked at her. It was a kind of possessiveness, a kind of desire for her body. However, this kind of gaze had never appeared in Yang Chendong's eyes, so much so that Sumaner suspected whether he was a normal man. However, this kind of suspicion was completely dispelled after she came into contact with the 2 madams, Hu Yan and Madame Shui. Sometimes, when she went to greet them in the morning, she could clearly see the satisfaction in the eyes of the 2 madams. Although Sumaner was still a virgin, she had been taught about the matters between men and women by her mothers. Naturally, she could see some of these things. The spring that flashed on his face was definitely not something that could be faked. Then the question was, why did such a normal man turn a blind eye to her? Could it be that he already knew her mission to get close to him? That was even more impossible. Even if he knew everything, he should have killed her earlier. Why did he still treat her like this? Why did he give her so many good things but not touch her? What did he want? The unknown always made people uneasy. It was because she could not understand Yang Chendong's thoughts that Sumaner became even more anxious. What was worse was that she realized that she did not hate Yang Chendong. It was just like when she saw Yang Chendong singing and dancing with his soldiers during the evening party. She actually felt happy in her heart. This was not a good sign. She could only have the intention to kill her target. It was impossible for her to have the slightest bit of liking for him. Otherwise, how could she complete her mission? The servant girl, Xiao Yun, was still talking endlessly, but Sumaner could not listen to a single word. From time to time, Yang Chendong's figure would flash across her mind. There was a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, as if it had grown in her head. Even if she waved her hand, it would not go far away. In the tent not far away, Yang Chendong was still using his power to have women on his left and right. After sleeping together for a while, they entered a short intermission. Hiding under Yang Chendong's strong arms, Hu Yan asked with an obedient look, "Lu Lang, is the war about to end?" "Yes, the Huang bandit army is about to be destroyed. The war in Guangdong is about to end." Yang Chendong nodded and admitted. However, he only said that the war in Guangdong was about to end. He did not say that the war was about to end. This originally expressed his attitude. As Hu Yan had other thoughts, she did not think too deeply about it. Naturally, she did not understand the deeper meaning in his words. When she heard Yang Chendong say that it was really about to end, she raised her head slightly. "Lu Lang, what do you plan to do about Miss Su's matter? She has been following us for more than a month without knowing why. What are you thinking?" "Yan, what do you want me to think?" When Yang Chendong heard Hu Yan talk about Sumaner, he could not help but become interested and asked. I don't know." Hu Yan shook her head. She also did not know what kind of mentality she was in now. As a woman, she did not wish to share the man she liked with other women. However, Yang Chendong was so young and so capable. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was in a high position and had great power. Such a person was destined not to belong to any woman. Even ordinary people who had some ability would marry a few concubines, let alone people like Yang Chendong. Chapter 399. In Hu Yan's eyes, Lu Lang would marry a lot of concubines in the future. As the legal wife, she was also his wife. What she could do was to arrange such things. At least, she could not let outsiders say that she was a jealous woman. This was also one of the responsibilities of a legal wife. It was because of this that she asked about Su Maner. Hu Yan did not know what Yang Chendong was thinking, so she naturally said that she did not know what to do. On the other side, Madame Shui, who was being hugged on the other side, said in a low voice, "Husband, sister, I think Miss Su is very good, especially her singing and dancing skills. I can't compare with her." Silly girl. There are many people who are good at singing and dancing in this world. Does it mean that they are all good people? Yang Chendong could not help laughing after hearing Madame Shui's words. No, I can feel that Miss Su is kind in nature, but I just feel that she has something on her mind. She always gives people a feeling that she is neither close nor distant. Madame Shui was afraid to leave a silly impression in Yang Chendong's eyes, so she explained in a low voice. As soon as these words were said, Yang Chendong's expression became much more serious. Even Madame Shui could feel it. It seemed that Miss Su's mind was not small. It was not good for her health if it went on like this for a long time. Should he do something? Or could it be that some things could be laid out in the open? At this moment, many plans flashed through Yang Chendong's mind. Su Maner's matter was about to be destroyed along with the Huang bandit army. It was time to solve it. On the official road from Gaozhou to Laizhou, nearly 100,000 people were walking slowly. They had not had a good rest for 2 days and 2 nights. The mental state of the whole team was depressed to a certain extent. Huang Yuliang, who was riding on the horse, looked at all this anxiously. He could not see where the bright future lay. More importantly, the 2,000 trusted subordinates he sent out had already sent back news that they had arrived at Laizhou Prefecture and discovered the presence of the Ming army. However, their numbers did not seem to be large and they might have a chance to attack the city. However, when it came to military operations, they still needed the young master to personally give the order. After all, they originally only wanted to complete the reconnaissance mission. Young master, the team's condition isn't good. Even if we reach Laizhou, I'm afraid we won't be able to complete the mission. Zhu Fengyong followed beside Huang Yuliang and said with a worried expression. General Zhu, do you have any ideas? Huang Yuliang placed his last hope on Zhu Fengyong. Young master, I have a suggestion. We should pick out some elite soldiers and arrange for them to rest. Then, we should rush to Laizhou City first and attack that place. Only then will the army have a way out. Zhu Fengyong said with a serious expression, as if he was worried about the army and the people. All right, then I'll have to trouble General Zhu to lead the team. At this time, only General Zhu can do things personally to make this young master feel at ease. Nodding lightly, Huang Yuliang placed his last hope on Zhu Fengyong. The 4 heavenly kings under him had either died in battle, been captured, or disappeared. There were not many people in the army that he could truly trust. Even Zhu Fengyong could not make him completely trust him. However, at this moment, Huang Yuliang did not have any other choice. He could only take a gamble. This. Zhu Fengyong did not immediately agree. Instead, he said with a thoughtful expression, I do not dare to disobey young master's orders. However, if we want to storm Laizhou Prefecture, I'm afraid we will need young master's 2,000 trusted soldiers. If I may be so bold, I would like to ask young master to write a letter and have those people listen to your orders. Frowning, Huang Yuliang said with some suspicion, do we really need these 2,000 trusted soldiers to act personally? Can't General Zhu take a few more people from the army to storm the city? Huang Yuliang didn't seem willing, and this was within Zhu Fengyong's expectations. Therefore, after hearing Huang Yuliang's words, Zhu Fengyong had an awkward expression on his face. Young master, as you can see, the army has been rushing through the night, and their condition is no longer the same as before. If we don't attack Laizhou City in one go, I'm afraid that the morale of the army will be shaken. If that happens, I'm afraid that the situation won't be good. Zhu Fengyong's words were very reasonable. The art of war was about winning a battle in one go. Once the battle became a battle of attrition, there would be pursuers behind and obstructions in front. The current Huang bandit army would not be able to handle it. For the sake of the big picture and his own safety, Huang Yuliang lowered his head and thought for a few breaths of time. Then, he nodded and said, Fine, since this is the case, I will hand the 2,000 men over to General Zhu. I wish you victory. As you wish. In the following time, Huang Yuliang personally wrote a letter to Zhu Fengyong. This was equivalent to handing over the command of the 2,000 soldiers to Zhu Fengyong. Following which, Zhu Fengyong selected 3,000-strong young men from the 50,000-strong army and rushed towards the Lizhou ahead of everyone else. Young master. General Zhu left. Other than the weapons he carried with him, he did not take any gold or silver. The person in charge of watching Zhu Fengyong came to Huang Yuliang's side and reported in a small voice. Understood. Huang Yuliang's expression clearly relaxed a lot after hearing this news. He was worried that Zhu Fengyong would think of a way to escape when he saw that the situation was not good. However, if he did not take any gold or silver with him, it was unlikely that he would not return. If this was the case, then he could relax a lot. In his heart, he prayed that Zhu Fengyong would successfully take down Lizhou City. This might be his only chance and hope to turn things around. On the second day, the army passed through 5 miles of Gaozhou City. They could already see the tall city walls in the distance. They could also see the sun and moon banners there. However, because the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, General Yu Guang, who was guarding Gaozhou City, did not have the slightest intention of going out to fight. Close to 100,000 people successfully passed through Gaozhou City. Soon after, good news came from the front lines. The letter was personally written by Zhu Fengyong. He said that he brought people to Lizhou City in the night. After reporting to his 2,000 soldiers, he launched an attack on the city at dawn. Because the soldiers sacrificed their lives and there were not many Ming Dynasty soldiers guarding Lizhou City, the battle ended in one battle. Lizhou City was now in the hands of the Huang bandit army. Haha, good. Seeing this news and seeing that the army had successfully passed through Gaozhou City, the tiredness of the past few days was swept away. Huang Yuliang finally saw a new hope. Pass down the order, the army will speed up. The sooner we reach Lizhou City, the better we can rest there and sleep for a few days. After the order was passed down, everyone's eyes were filled with hope. Their speed was even faster than before. After having a goal and hope, everyone's potential was also stimulated. Originally, it would have taken 3 days to complete the journey. However, on the second night, the army arrived at the Lizhou prefecture city. Looking from afar, the city gates were wide open. A group of Huang bandit army were holding torches on both sides of the city gates, welcoming the young master and the army. Haha, good. Although Huang Yuliang was very tired, at this moment, it was as if he had the final radiance of the setting sun. His face revealed an excited and relaxed expression. From afar, Zhu Fengyong and a group of followers appeared. When they were 3 steps away from Huang Yuliang, they half knelt on the ground. Then they raised their head and said, "Young master, I did not disappoint you and took down Lizhou City. Right now, the city has already prepared hot food and water. We are just waiting for the army to settle in and rest." Good. General Zhu, you have worked hard. Huang Yuliang said a few more times. Then, his gaze seemed to casually fall on the welcoming army. He frowned slightly. He did not see the presence of his 2,000 soldiers. Huang Yuliang's suspicious gaze fell on Zhu Fengyong's eyes, and he also felt that something was amiss. However, before he could speak, the army behind suddenly became chaotic. Then, a scout on a fast horse rushed over. Young master, something bad has happened. The Ming army behind us has suddenly increased their speed. They are now less than 10 li away from us. So fast. We need to enter the city quickly. Men, protect young master as he enters the city. Zhu Fengyong's reaction was extremely fast. He knew that the 6th young master had rushed over with his army. It was time to reel in the net. Without any explanation, he waved his arm. Behind him, people rushed past him and rushed in front of Huang Yuliang. Wait. Huang Yuliang already felt that something was wrong. However, he could not pinpoint what was wrong. Instinctively, he wanted to resist. However, he did not expect that the people who ran to his side only needed to touch his body to make him feel numb. Then, he felt dizzy and fell to the ground. Fortunately, he was discovered and Zhu Fengyong's subordinates caught him in time. Using this opportunity, he shouted, "The young master has fainted from exhaustion. Everyone, listen to my orders. Enter the city quickly. There were pursuers behind them. Entering the city was the safest way. There was no need for Zhu Fengyong to say anything. Everyone was already scrambling to rush into the city. At this moment, these people walked as if they were flying. How could they be tired at all? With everyone's concerted efforts, they finally entered the city when the Ming army was 2 li away from the city. The moment the heavy city gates closed, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Immediately, many people fell to the ground and slept because they were too tired and relaxed. Some of the people who were barely holding on also entered the houses allocated to them by the city and fell asleep on their beds. A total of 50,000 Huang bandits and 40,000 commoners fell asleep in the Liezhou prefecture. Just as they fell asleep, outside the city, Yang Qindong led 5,000 people into the city. At the same time, the bandit leader Huang Yuliang was led to a large courtyard in the Liezhou prefecture. Chapter 400. When Huang Yuliang could not see the 2,000 soldiers he sent outside the city, he began to have doubts in his heart. It was only because of the battle report from behind that he put down his thoughts and hurried into the city. However, as soon as he entered the city and entered his large courtyard, which was also when he separated from the army, over 100 vigorous men rushed out from all over the courtyard. The dozens of guards around him were quickly killed, and he was also tied up with ropes. Huang Yuliang, whose mouth was gagged and could not speak, was furious. However, with his body tied up, he could only struggle with all his might to express the dissatisfaction in his heart. All of this continued until he was sent to the magistrate's office and saw a young man sitting high above. Beside the young man was Zhu Fengyong, whom he had once given great authority to. Only then was the white cloth in his mouth taken off, and what followed was a torrent of curses. Zhu Fengyong, this young master has treated you well. How can you do this to me? After the white cloth was removed, Huang Yuliang's shouts could be heard. After being tortured for so long, how could he still have the strength to shout? You have treated me well? You can ask yourself, when have you truly trusted me? Bring him in. Facing Huang Yuliang's questioning, Zhu Fengyong's expression did not change, and he shouted outside. Following this shout, a man with a face full of sideburns was quickly brought in. Just like Huang Yuliang, his entire body was also tied up. Upon seeing this person, Huang Yuliang was dumbfounded. Of course, he recognized the person who was tied up. This was the assistant he had secretly arranged by Zhu Fengyong's side. He was also a spy, and his name was Lu Chong. Normally, everything about Zhu Fengyong was secretly reported to him by this person. When Lu Chong appeared, Zhu Fengyong looked at Huang Yuliang and said, "Since you trust me, why did you arrange for someone to secretly monitor me? Moreover, you even ordered him to kill me on the spot if he discovered that I had any thoughts of rebelling. Can this also be called treating people well?" These words were naturally from Lu Chong. Hearing this, Huang Yuliang knew that there was no way to salvage the situation. He didn't want to dwell on this matter anymore. Instead, he changed his tune and scolded, "Zhu Fengyong, you are a despicable person who betrays his master for glory. Today, you can betray me to curry favor with the Southern Ming Empire. Who knows if you will betray your current master to curry favor with someone else one day. You are such a two-faced person. You have no ruler, no father, no heaven, and no earth. You deserve to be punished by everyone." This was Huang Yuliang's counterattack before his death. When he knew that the matter was over and everything was irreversible, he set up another trap before his death. He could already tell that the one in control here was not Zhu Fengyong, but the young man sitting at the head of the table. Even so, his accusation before his death would definitely be like a thorn in the young man's heart. Once there was an opportunity, today's words might become the step that would lead Zhu Fengyong to the guillotine. Zhu Fengyong understood the meaning behind Huang Yuliang's words, and his face turned ugly. Although he was ordered to go undercover this time, in order to gain Huang Yuliang's trust, he had indeed put in some effort and emotions. He had even said some overboard words. However, that was only because the situation forced him to do so. However, if someone were to repeat what he had said back then, he wouldn't be able to defend himself even if he had 100 mouths. When Huang Yuliang's expression changed, he also laughed out loud. He noticed that not only did Zhu Fengtong's expression turn ugly, but the young man sitting at the head of the table also had an unhappy expression. Did this not prove that the thorn he planted had already taken effect? Ha 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 ha. Just as Huang Yuliang's laughter sounded, another loud laugh followed, and it quickly drowned out his laughter. This voice came from Yang Chendong, who was sitting at the head of the table. Yang Chendong's sudden laughter stopped Huang Yuliang's laughter. He looked at the young man with a puzzled expression. He couldn't understand why the other party was laughing, and he couldn't tell what was going to happen next. Haha, very good, very good. As expected of someone who could become a bandit leader. This psychological attack is indeed powerful. It's just that your calculations are wrong. Battalion Commander Zhu was originally arranged by me to be by your side. Everything he did and everything he said was approved by me. Perhaps in the process of carrying out the mission, he had no choice but to use some tricks. However, that was also to better complete the plan. Now that you have been captured and kneeled in front of me, it is clear proof. Yang Chendong, who was laughing loudly, first proved Zhu Fengyong's innocence. He explained that Zhu Fengyong had become a spy completely under his orders, and everything he did was to complete the mission. With this, he placed Zhu Fengyong in an extremely high position. Next, Yang Chendong continued to speak in order to prevent any future troubles. Zhu Fengyong will be the deputy commander of the Cold Vanguard 2nd Regiment, and will be awarded the rank of lieutenant colonel in recognition of his outstanding contribution in eliminating the Huang bandit army. From now on, no one is allowed to mention that Deputy Commander Zhu was a spy in the Huang bandit army. If anyone dares to disobey this order, they will be punished according to military law. Now, I will have to trouble Deputy Commander Huang to personally kill Huang Yuliang in the lobby, and draw a perfect conclusion to this matter. First, he placed Zhu Fengyong in a righteous position so that he could be justified in his actions. Next, he praised and promoted him to show that he had done a good job. Next, he warned the others that this matter was over, and if anyone dared to bring up the old scores, they would be severely punished. Finally, he arranged for Zhu Fengyong to chop off Huang Yuliang's head. This way, he would really be cut in half. Zhu Fengyong heard Yang Chendong's painstaking efforts and knelt on the ground with a thud. Thank you, 6th young master, for your trust. Zhu Fengyong will never be able to repay your trust even if I die 10,000 times. That's enough. From now on, you will be a high-ranking officer in the Cold Vanguard Army. Don't talk about death so casually. Beta Persei, give Deputy Commander Zhu a knife so that he won't continue to be noisy. Yang Chendong looked at Zhu Fengyong with a smile and handed over a steel knife. Holding the steel knife, Zhu Fengyong walked to Huang Yuliang, who was kneeling on the ground, with a ferocious expression. Feeling the aura of death, Huang Yuliang no longer spoke as confidently as before. Instead, he peed and pooped all over the ground. General Zhu, on account of the fact that I have treated you well in the past, please plead for mercy for me. As long as you don't kill me, I will do whatever you want me to do in the future. Hey, despicable person, die! After Zhu Fengyong's loud shout, a silver light flashed and a large head was separated from his body. Fresh blood spurted out from the neck and covered Zhu Fengyong's face and body. Huang Yuliang was dead. His death represented the official end of the so-called Guangdong uprising that had caused chaos in Guangdong for nearly 2 years. It also meant that the Huang father and son had completely retired from the stage of history. Now that Huang Yuliang was dead, the next step was to deal with the entire Huang bandit army. Under the prearranged arrangements, the first thing to do was to bring out the 40,000 people from Wu State Prefecture and leave the city. They didn't even know where they were going. When they woke up from their dreams, they were led out of their homes and brought to the nearby docks. There, a large ship was already waiting for them. The ship naturally belonged to the Xianxia Navy that had been ordered by the 6th young master to carry out a mission. The leader was the Navy Division Commander and Commander of the 1st Regiment. At the same time, he was also the person in charge of the Navy. He was also one of the first people to follow Yang Chendong, Gao Xiong. It had been more than 2 years since they last saw each other. Now, they could finally see the glory of the 6th young master. Gao Xiong stood his ground and used his authority to take the initiative to come to Laizhou Prefecture to pick up people. Laizhou Prefecture Yamen. When Gao Xiong appeared in front of Yang Chendong, he first gave a standard military salute. Then his knees went soft and he knelt on the ground. Gao Xiong wants to meet the young master. Greetings, young master. Haha, you're already a division commander and in charge of the entire navy. I heard that in this part of the sea, your name Gao Xiong is known by everyone. Even mentioning your name can stop a 3-year-old child from crying. Why are you crying now? The moment he saw Gao Xiong, Yang Chendong's heart was filled with excitement. This little pirate who wanted to find trouble with him but was subdued by him had finally become a general. It really made people sigh and feel gratified. Listening to Yang Chendong talk about his glorious deeds, Gao Xiong couldn't help but cry and smile. He said embarrassedly, "Young master, what I heard were rumors. I don't have that kind of ability. All of this was given to me by the young master. I was just following the orders of the young master." Don't be arrogant. That's good. Come, get up. Tell me about the situation on Ryukyu Island and what Reiken City is like. Yang Chendong nodded with praise. Gao Xiong was originally a pirate, so he was very familiar with the sea. He was also proficient in naval warfare. He was indeed a talent. However, as the Xianxia Navy continued to expand, there were many people who came to join him every day. Although there weren't many people like him, if he wanted to find them, he could always find some. But no matter how powerful those people were, it was difficult for them to be as loyal as Gao Xiong. It was this kind of loyalty that was hard to come by. The feeling of being supported and raised from a young age was not something that others could compare with. Gao Xiong, who was personally helped up by Yang Chendong, was very excited. Young master, speaking of Little Ryukyu Island, the changes are not small. The fertile land has been mined, and factories have been built in the areas that can't be farmed. The city on the island has been reinforced with cement, and it's very different from before. But none of this can compare to the changes in Reiken City. That is a city that was built by the young master himself. Its old appearance has been replaced with a new one. The roads are straight, the streets are clean, and the city looks brand new. By the way, the rubber trees have been put into use. Factory manager Luan has already made the first batch of electric circuits according to your instructions. He has installed them in the Reiken Palace. When night falls, the place will be as bright as day. Every time this happens, the people of Reiken City will kneel on the ground and shout that it is a miracle. The second batch of boats carrying the rubber trees has already set off. According to factory manager Luan, it won't be long before electricity enters the homes of the people. When that time comes, Reiken City will become a city that never sleeps. Chapter 401. Gao Xiong spoke excitedly, and Yang Chendong listened attentively. From time to time, he would give some suggestions. Tell manager Luan that the rubber trees can also be cultivated. If the climate is suitable, they will survive very well. Transporting them so far by sea is not a long-term plan. While the master and servant were chatting, the Liezhou citizens were also forcefully sent onto the ships. When they were being moved from their ancestral land, many of them had expressions of reluctance. There were even some who resisted. However, Yang Chendong believed that once they reached Ryukyu Island, they would know what a true paradise was. At that time, even if they were chased away, no one would want to leave. Moreover, before long, being able to reach Ryukyu Island would become a symbol of glory. At that time, it would be difficult for anyone to snatch such an opportunity. 40,000 civilians of Wuxia Prefecture, 50,000 civilians of Liezhou Prefecture, and 50,000 Huang bandits under strict supervision boarded the ships. They would become another batch of residents of Little Ryukyu Island, making their own contributions to the development of the island. 90,000 citizens were easier to deal with, but 50,000 Huang bandits was a headache. Although there were many young people among them, there were also some who were brave and ruthless. For this reason, Yang Chendong specially arranged for Zhu Fangyong to follow them to the island. After all, he had led them before and was familiar with their situation. However, before they boarded the ship, Yang Chendong still instructed Zhu Fangyong, if they have a kind nature or can be changed, we can spend some effort to help them. However, if they have an impure heart, we can sentence them based on their past actions. If they have committed heinous crimes, we can kill some of them. If they haven't committed heinous crimes, we can arrange for them to serve their sentences. Isn't there always a shortage of people to build roads? We can arrange for them. Fortunately, during the last battle of Wuzhou, Zhu Fangyong had already arranged for some uncivilized people to fight against the Ming army. Both sides had suffered great losses, and most of the troublemakers had been dealt with. The following work shouldn't be too difficult. Work went on in an orderly manner. In order to complete the mission, Gao Xiong had brought along 2 battalions of the Navy's Cold Front, as well as 3 auxiliary battalions. With them and the fact that most of the people being transported were civilians, there was no need to worry about their safety. It's time to solve her problem. With a sigh, Yang Qindong led Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and the others to the backyard of the Liezhou government office. Su Maner had just entered the city with Hu Yan and Madame Shui. She was still settling down and tidying up. Little Yun, bring a basin of clean water over. The windowsill is really too dirty. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind her, Su Maner said without turning her head. However, since she had already said that, she quickly stood there and did not move. After about 2 or 3 breaths of time, she slowly turned around with a nervous expression. You've come. Naturally, the person who came was Yang Qindong. Gao Xiong and the others were about to leave, and it was very likely that they would be busy with the matters in Yunnan. Naturally, it would not be good for Su Maner to stay in the military camp. Besides, he already had a rough idea of the other party's intentions. There were some things that should be resolved, and it would not be good to drag things on. Yang Qindong saw the graceful Su Maner turn her head. She was still as stunning as ever. He couldn't help but take a few more glances and make a soft sound of agreement. Su Maner was naturally not prepared for Yang Qindong's arrival. Previously, she had heard that he had gone to busy himself with military matters. Now, he had suddenly appeared in her boudoir. How could she not be shocked? She was even a bit nervous. Her gaze seemed to involuntarily glance outside. When she saw that it was still afternoon and not dark time for bedtime, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. She thought to herself, no matter how anxious she is, she can't possibly do anything to me right now. As a gentleman, he had to have his own demeanor. As she had not expected this, Su Maner was first nervous. However, her experience quickly took effect. Her expression started to return to normal. Her hands and feet were also very nimble as she prepared a cup of tea and brought it to Yang Qindong. Lord Imperial Envoy, please have some tea. How many times have I told you? You can call me the young master of the Yang family, or you can call me the East Marshal. Lord Imperial Envoy is an official title. It is not something a beautiful woman like you should call me. Yang Qindong's voice was still ringing in her ears. However, his hand had already pressed down on the teacup. Then, his other hand seized the opportunity to grab Su Maner's jade arm and did not let go. Who would have thought that Yang Qindong had lost his usual demeanor and was actually committing lewd acts in broad daylight? Su Maner, who was completely unprepared, couldn't help but cry out in shock. Qin, East Marshal, what are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Didn't you come to my side to serve me? Yang Qindong asked with interest. Yes. But why didn't East Marshal have any thoughts about me before? As she struggled, Su Maner also asked the question in her heart. Before? Previously, we dealt with the Huang bandit army together. How could I have such thoughts? Now that the overall situation has been decided, I naturally have to do what needs to be done. Come, beauty. At this moment, Yang Qindong had changed his usual gentle demeanor. It was as if he was a completely different person. He became impatient. Yang Qindong's change was too great. If Hu Yan and Lady Shui were here, they would definitely find it very strange. In the end, Su Maner still didn't know much about him. She thought that this was his true appearance and that she had seen through his nature. At the same time, there was a faint excitement in her heart. She had been arranged to be by Yang Qindong's side. Her purpose was to kill Yang Qindong at the last moment. At the same time, she wanted to end the Southern Ming dynasty's future troubles. At the same time, she also wanted to fulfill her wish of repaying the debt of gratitude. With this thought, she had already imagined the scene of her killing Yang Qindong countless times in her mind. She had even imagined what she should do now when the other party was careless. On the surface, Su Maner appeared very nervous. However, she was very excited in her heart. She also changed her usual dignified appearance. First, she revealed a fox-like smile. Then she said, Dong Shui, don't be anxious. I'm destined to be yours. However, even if it's my first time, I have to leave a good impression. Why don't you give me some time to take a bath? This was already a form of tacit agreement. If it was any other man who heard these words, they would be overjoyed. Towards such a request, there should be nothing wrong with it. However, in front of Yang Chendong, he didn't act according to common sense. Instead, he shook his head anxiously. There's no need to take a bath. You already smell very good. I can even smell the scent coming from your body. Why don't we go directly to the bed? As he spoke, Yang Chendong actually used a little strength and hugged Su Maner by the waist. Then, he laughed loudly and walked towards the wooden bed not far away. You are really impatient. A hint of anger flashed across Su Maner's eyes. Then, she regained her composure. Not only that, she even cooperated and stretched her arm backwards. Then, she touched Yang Chendong's waist. She looked as if she was trying to cater to him. Pooh! Just as Yang Chendong was laughing loudly and feeling pleased with himself, the sharp hairpin suddenly pierced into his waist. On the hairpin was Su Maner's tightly clenched arm. At this moment, she no longer had the expression of cater to him. Instead, she was glaring angrily. Then, a look of relief appeared on her face. Plop! After being pierced by the hairpin, Yang Chendong seemed to be seriously injured. His hands suddenly became weak. Then, he threw Su Maner from his arms to the ground. Then, he took a few steps back. You want to kill me? Why? With a face full of doubt, Yang Chendong widened his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe what was happening in front of his eyes. There's no why. It's just because you have to die. Su Maner, who had climbed up from the ground, gritted her teeth and said. Then, she laughed loudly as if she had lost her mind. I didn't expect that I would really be able to complete this mission. Ha! Mission? Who gave you this mission? Could it be Zhu Qizhen from Yingzhong? Yang Chendong asked with a forceful tone. When Yang Chendong asked this question, a look of surprise flashed across Su Maner's eyes. However, when she saw the hairpin in her hand, she couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Forget it. There's poison on my hairpin. It has already entered your body. There's no saving you. Since you're going to die, why do you still need to ask so clearly? It's precisely because I'm going to die that I want to be an understanding ghost. I don't know if you can fulfill my wish. As Yang Chendong staggered, he kicked over a wooden stool as he retreated. Finally, he steadied himself. Seeing Yang Chendong in such a state, for some reason, a look of pity flashed across Su Maner's eyes. Then she slowly turned her head away. Her originally beautiful and clear eyes couldn't stop the tears from flowing down. You're crying. You still can't bear to kill me, right? You must have your reasons, right? Yang Chendong, who had noticed this scene, continued to ask questions. Don't ask any more. You're going to die, and I'm going to die too. Why do you still need to be so clear? What's the point? With tears in her eyes, Su Maner, whose voice was choked with sobs, kept shaking her head. Obviously, this was a scene that she really didn't want to face. Of course there's a point. If you have no choice but to kill me, even if I die here, I can give the order not to let others make things difficult for you. In this way, although I'm going to die, you can live. Yang Hodong's tone was weak, but he still had to get to the bottom of this. No. Su Maner, who was crying, shook her head. I have to die. From the moment I got close to you, I was already a dead person. Even if you spare me, others won't let me off either. Why? Yang Chendong was close to roaring. It was as if he had used all the strength in his body to shout this question. Chapter 402. Perhaps it was because this shout was too soul-stirring, or perhaps it was because Su Maner had too many things in her heart and wanted to find someone to confide in before she died. She said with tears in her eyes. Do you know? Just before today, I thought that I could live for a while longer because it was too difficult to kill you. You weren't like other men who were greedy for my beauty. I couldn't even get close to you, so how could I kill you? So I thought that I could continue living. I even thought that there would be a day when I would have feelings for you and give up the idea of killing you. But today, you finally revealed your true colors. So you must die. So, you don't deserve to know the reason. Towards the end, Su Maner also used a roaring voice to reply. So, you still have a good impression of me. So, you already have feelings for me, right? Is there any use in saying all this now? You and I are both people who are about to die. She shook her head instinctively. But suddenly, Su Maner's expression changed. She was shocked to discover that the current young Chendong was no longer as weak as before. On the contrary, his tone was calm. It was as if he had returned to his original expression of strategizing. At this moment, Yang Chendong was also staring at Su Maner. When he saw how shocked she was, he asked, "What you meant just now was that you have feelings for me, and if I don't die, your mission won't be completed. So you don't have to die, right?" "Yes." Instinctively, Su Maner nodded. "Good. Then, young master won't die. So, you don't have to die either, right?" Yang Chendong also nodded. Then, he picked up the wooden stool that he had kicked down and casually sat on it. At this moment, he didn't look like he was seriously injured at all and was about to die. All of this fell into Su Maner's eyes, causing her to wonder if she was hallucinating. She first rubbed her eyes hard, then said, "That's impossible. My hairpin has a huge poison on it. Once it pierces into a person's body, they will be poisoned to death." "But what if it doesn't pierce into your body?" Yang Chendong answered this question as he took off the bulletproof vest he was wearing. Since he wanted to have a showdown with Su Maner and knew that she might try to kill him, how could he not be prepared? "If I don't die, does that mean that you don't have to die?" The moment Yang Chendong stood up, Su Maner had already been petrified on the spot. First, she revealed an expression of disbelief, then her eyes were empty. It was as if all the energy in her body had been sucked out at this moment. With a plop, she sat down on the wooden chair behind her. At this moment, even Su Maner herself did not know what she was thinking. Was it the feeling of her plan failed? Or was it disappointment with a hint of joy? She couldn't explain all of this clearly. All she knew was that the moment she stabbed out with a hairpin, her heart had indeed ached fiercely. Even the words she said at the end were said in an emotional state. She was afraid that she had already forgotten how many of them were from her heart, and she was even more unable to face them. Now, Yang Chendong was actually fine. That meant that she hadn't completed her mission. Then, she should be sad right now. But why was there a hint of joy in her heart that she couldn't explain? Su Maner sat back down on the stool. It was Yang Chendong's turn to speak with assurance. "You don't have to ask why I'm prepared. I still have many tricks up my sleeve. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lived until today. I actually know some things about you long ago, so I can understand you. You must have your own difficulties. Now, I'll give you a chance. Tell me everything. No matter what the reason is, I can promise that I won't kill you." Yang Chendong's words rang out in the lady's boudoir, but he didn't get any response from Su Maner. She just sat there in a daze, with a dull look in her eyes. "What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? Didn't you say that you have a mission? What kind of mission is this?" As Yang Chendong spoke, he moved closer to Su Maner. He could feel the struggle in her heart and could also imagine the entanglement in her heart. He was a little worried that she might suddenly commit suicide. He slowly moved closer and was prepared to make a move at any time. Yang Chendong's footsteps got closer and closer. The distance of 5 to 6 steps took him 3 breaths' time. Just as he was about to rush over and grab Su Maner, the lady's sleeve suddenly trembled and a copper hairpin appeared. However, this time, the hairpin that appeared did not have any intention of targeting Yang Chendong. Instead, it changed its direction and placed it on her neck. Su Maner's originally expressionless face also had a hint of blood. "Don't come over. I've let you down. I'll commit suicide in front of you. I just hope that you won't make things difficult for my maid, Xiao Yun. Just pretend that I've never appeared here." "Wait." The moment Su Maner finished speaking, the hairpin had already moved towards her snow-white neck. However, at the same time, Yang Chendong's shout rang out. "If you don't say anything and just die like this, in order to find out the reason behind this, it's inevitable that I'll do something to your maid. So you can't die yet? At least, you can't die before you tell me the reason." Yang Chendong's unconventional method of wanting to save Su Maner was a little cold-blooded, but it was still a method. However, in front of Su Maner, who was determined to die, its effect was very limited. Not only did she look as if she did not listen to him, she even said with a sorrowful expression, "Why? Don't I even have the right to choose to die?" After saying that, A look of resentment flashed across Sumaner's eyes, as if she was complaining about how unfair the heavens were to her. Since they had allowed her to be born, why do they have to torment her like this? The light that flashed across Sumaner's eyes gave young Chendong a bad feeling. He could seriously say that this woman really wanted to die. If that was the case, it would be difficult to move her no matter how much he said now. Then what should he do? Just as Sumaner was determined to die and young Chendong was at a loss of what to do, the maid, Xiao Yun's shout suddenly came from outside the room. "Miss, are you inside?" Xiao Yun, who had shouted halfway, immediately stopped moving. It was obvious that Tiger's Mane and Beta Persei, who were supposed to be outside, had stopped her. The moment the two of them made a move outside, Yang Chendong, who was inside the room, also moved. With a big stride, he crossed the distance that he would usually need to take 3 steps, and appeared beside Sumaner like a gust of wind. It was Xiao Yun's shout just now that caused Sumaner's face to become slightly absent-minded. This sudden opportunity was seized by Yang Chendong. He flew over and came to Sumaner's side, reaching out his hand to snatch the hairpin. Yang Chendong's speed was already very fast, and he had grasped the opportunity very accurately. However, it was as if there was God's will in the unseen world. Just as he reached out his hand to grab it, Sumaner reacted. Her arm suddenly fell, piercing straight towards her neck. Then, as her arm fell, a large hand pushed up and grabbed the delicate hand that was holding the hairpin. Even so, her movements were still slower by half a beat. The hairpin still left a small scratch on Sumaner's fair and flawless neck. Once the scratch was made, fresh blood flowed out of her body. The moment she felt that her neck was a little cold, Sumaner stopped struggling and allowed Yang Chendong to restrain her arm. She also allowed herself to be held in his arms. "It's useless. This hairpin is also coated with a strong poison. If it comes into contact with my body, I'll definitely die. Haha, I'm going to die." With an unknown emotion, Sumaner slowly said this. Then, she raised her gaze slightly and looked at Yang Chendong's face and eyes. "I'm going to die. In the future, I won't be a threat to you. I won't be in so much pain. To me, this is already a kind of release. Release my ass." Yang Chendong, who had always given off an elegant feeling, suddenly spat out vulgarities at this moment. Then he roared loudly like a male lion. "Since you've come to my side, you're my woman. Without my consent, no one can decide whether you live or die. This includes you. But I'm still going to die, aren't I?" Seeing that Yang Chendong was angry, a smile actually bloomed on Sumaner's face. It seemed to be a satisfied smile, but more like a happy smile. "I thought that you didn't care about me at all. I thought that I couldn't enter your eyes. But now, lying in your arms, I can clearly feel your heartbeat and breathing. I can also feel that you like me, right?" As a person who was about to die, Sumaner seemed to be able to finally free her heart. Her words were much more direct than before. "Yes, I like you. From the first time I saw you, I was mesmerized by you." Yang Chendong kept nodding and admitting his feelings. "And you also like me, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have cried just now, right?" Faced with Yang Chendong's question, Sumaner really wanted to say yes. Through these days of observation and contact, she saw all the good points of this man. He was elegant, polite, and talented. Especially his strategic attitude on the battlefield and his confidence in life with a smile. It was as if as long as he smiled, there was nothing in the world that could be difficult for him. Which young girl wouldn't like a man with such an imposing aura? Chapter 403. Other people could like Yang Chendong, but Sumaner could not. Her background meant that her right to like had long been taken away from her. All she had to do was hide the trace of murderous intent in her heart. She had been doing her best to hide her true feelings. Even until her death, Sumaner still did not dare to admit it. Faced with Yang Chendong's question, she could only force a smile. "I'm about to die. Is this still important? Your embrace is very comfortable. I want to sleep. I'm already very happy to be able to slowly sleep here." After saying this, Sumaner slowly closed her eyes. At the same time, a drop of sparkling tear slid out from the corner of her eye. Perhaps this teardrop represented her last breath. Perhaps when it fell to the ground, she would stop breathing. No. You can't sleep. Someone come quickly. Yang Qindong knew that if Su Maner closed her eyes and fell asleep now, she would probably never wake up again. Hence, he wanted to stop her from closing her eyes and go to sleep. His shout rang out. Tiger's mane, Beta Persei, and the servant girl Xiao Yun, who was carried under the blanket like a little chick, rushed into the room. When the three of them saw Yang Qindong with a dark face and carrying the crying Su Maner in his arms, they stood rooted to the ground as if they had been struck by lightning. They did not know what had happened and why they had seen such a scene. Tiger's mane and Beta Persei, in particular, were actually a little anxious at this moment. This was because this was the first time they had seen such a terrifying expression on the young master's face. It was as if he was going to eat a living person. Quick, go find a doctor. Find a doctor who can treat poison. Miss Su is injured. She was hurt by the poisonous hairpin. Go quickly. Yang Qindong, who was almost shouting these words, stretched out his right index finger and pointed outside the door. Oh! Tiger's mane and Beta Persei both agreed readily and turned to leave. At this moment, a weak voice sounded in their ears. Miss should be fine. Not only did Hu Mang and Yang Er, who were about to leave, stop in their tracks, but even Yang Qindong, who looked like he wanted to eat someone, and Su Maner, who was in his arms, widened their eyes at this moment. They looked at the maid, Xiao Yun, who was about to be ignored. Noticing that everyone's gaze was on her, Xiao Yun felt a wave of panic in her heart. She actually lowered her head in fear under such gazes. Raise your head and repeat what you just said. Yang Qindong's voice suddenly rang out, rushing towards Xiao Yun's ears like thunder. Under such a shout, even Beta Persei, who had always had a thunderous voice, felt a sense of inferiority. However, no one cared about the volume of the voice at this time. Instead, they all looked at Xiao Yun, waiting for her answer. Xiao Yun was also frightened by the thunderous voice. She had no choice but to raise her head again. Using her still weak voice, she asked, "May I ask if the hairpin that injured the young miss is the one in your hands?" "That's right, what's wrong?" Yang Qindong instinctively responded, then asked in a deep voice. At this time, he didn't notice that his usual confidence had long disappeared. Now, he was just an ordinary man who was swayed by his feelings. "Ah, it really is. Then there's no problem. This hairpin is not poisonous. Only that hairpin is poisonous." When she heard Yang Qindong's clear answer, Xiao Yun couldn't help but speak with joy. "Not poisonous? How do you know?" Yang Qindong still didn't believe her. Su Maner, who was in his arms, had a slight change in her expression, but no one paid attention to her at this time. "It's like this," Xiao Yun was honest. She answered whatever Yang Qindong asked and was extremely cooperative. "The hairpin that fell on the ground was given to us by someone else. It was already contaminated with a huge poison. The hairpin in your hands is slightly small, but Miss asked me to prepare it. She said that if things didn't work out, she would use this hairpin to commit suicide. But how could I let Miss die? So I agreed, but in reality, I didn't put anything on it. I lied to Miss. I'm sorry." Xiao Yun told the truth intermittently. Then, she lowered her head and grabbed the corner of her clothes timidly. She looked like she had accepted her punishment. Ha! Ha ha, good. You lied well. After Yang Qindong understood everything, he actually laughed out loud. Then, he lowered his head to look at Su Maner in his arms and said with a smile, "You heard it. It's just a small external wound. This kind of wound won't kill anyone." Su Maner, who was in his arms, was blushing at this moment. The moment Xiao Yun said that she wouldn't die, she already had a faint feeling. Now that the truth was out, she didn't know if she should be resentful or glad. Thinking of how she was still hiding in Yang Qindong's arms, looking so delicate and weak, how could she not be ashamed to see others? Su Maner closed her eyes tightly, but her long eyelashes kept blinking. This meant that she was fine now, better than ever. Knowing that Su Maner was fine, Yang Qindong could finally relax and begin to resolve the matter that had happened. "Xiao Yun, you said that the hairpin with the poison was given to you by someone. Who is he?" "Xiao Yun, don't say it." Su Maner, who was in his arms, suddenly interrupted. Then, she was about to stand up with her beautiful eyes. Since she didn't kill Yang Qindong, as long as she took all the blame, it wouldn't have anything to do with anyone else. Su Maner's interruption made Yang Qindong a little angry. After turning his head to glare at her, he saw her stubborn gaze. To be able to become the top courtesan of the Qinhuai River, it wasn't just because of her beautiful appearance. Regardless of whether it was her intelligence or her methods, she was the best of the best. At this moment, even when facing Yang Qindong, she still showed a fearless expression. If one looked carefully, it was as if she was asking for death. Su Maner's fearless expression infuriated Yang Qindong. In a fit of anger, he suddenly bent down and used his mouth to block her lips. The sudden change made Su Maner, who was originally indifferent to life and death, completely petrified at this moment. She had thought of many outcomes. For example, she would be tortured severely, or she would be sugar-coated with sweet words. She had even thought of Yang Qindong throwing her back to intimidate the noble who secretly ordered her. Or she would be imprisoned forever and spend the rest of her life in darkness and so on. However, she had thought of many outcomes and methods, but she had never thought that Yang Qindong would suddenly kiss her. Moreover, it was in front of the maid, Xiao Yun, Tiger's Mane, and Beta Persei. The etiquette in ancient times was very strict. Even young men and women who liked each other had to scrupulously abide by their duties in public. Once an action like holding hands was seen by others, they would be scolded as a disgrace to culture. Not to mention such an intimate action like kissing. If it wasn't for the fact that she could clearly feel the peculiar feeling warmth, and even a hint of sweetness from Yang Qindong's lips, Su Maner wouldn't have dared to let such a thing happen before her eyes even if she was beaten to death. Su Maner completely lost her composure from this kiss. Xiao Yun, Tiger's Mane, and Beta Persei, who were watching this scene, also revealed shocked expressions. Then, Tiger's Mane, who was the first to react, turned his head around. The moment Beta Persei turned around, he did not forget to carry Xiao Yun, who was also staring at this scene, over. As a result, there was another round of struggle. Oh! She did not know how long this kiss lasted. Perhaps it was only a breath, or perhaps it was 3 or 4 breaths, or 7 or 8 breaths. It was only when Su Maner felt that she was suffocating that she struggled violently. She pushed Yang Qindong's chest with both hands, wanting to separate the two of them. At this moment, Yang Qindong had completely developed the idea of conquering the other party. Since he had already started and realized that the effect was quite good, at least he was enjoying it. How could he allow the other party to push him away so easily at this moment? The moment Su Maner exerted force, he also increased his strength. He stretched out his arms and hugged her even more tightly. This kiss also deepened. Originally, it was just a kiss between the lips, not a deep one. But this time, Yang Qindong even stuck out his tongue. After a series of flipping, Su Maner, who had no experience in this, was completely subdued. From the initial intense resistance, it turned into limited resistance. After that, there was no resistance and then there was some cooperation. All of this could be said to be based on instinct. This time, it took even longer. Tiger's Mane and the other two had already left at some point in time. The sky outside seemed to have darkened. A wave of pain came from her body. The two of them had completely become one. Yang Qindong had been at Miss Su's place for an entire afternoon. He did not even appear during dinner. In the backyard, after tidying up, Hu Yan and Madame Shui guessed what had happened while waiting. The two of them looked at each other, and it was hard to tell what had happened. Yang Qindong's excellence could be seen by almost everyone, and he was so young. It was a blessing to marry such a man. It was the beginning of happiness, the source of joy. However, at the same time, there were pros and cons. Marrying such a man was destined to not share alone. Hu Yan and Madame Shui were already prepared for this. When Su Maner first appeared, they already had this feeling. They just did not expect things to drag on for so long. All right, sister, let's eat first. Your husband won't be able to come. Hu Yan smiled sweetly. She had already returned to normal. She waved her hand, and the delicacies were immediately placed on the table. Chapter 404. In Su Maner's boudoir, the food was also served. The only difference was that the woman in the room no longer had the strength to eat. At this moment, she was lying in Yang Qindong's arms and being fed mouthful by mouthful. Under Yang Qindong's countless corrections and even punishments, Sumaner finally changed her way of addressing him as husband. At this moment, she was using the new way of addressing him. Husband, I still have some strength. Don't I need you to feed me? You still have strength? All right then, let's eat in a while and then go through the actions just now. Yang Chendong nodded as if he was serious and put down the bowl and chopsticks in his hands. No. I don't have any strength left. Sumaner naturally knew what Yang Chendong was preparing to do. She was really frightened and kept shaking her head. From the afternoon until now, more than 6 hours had passed. This man was like an ox that did not know fatigue. He did not allow her to rest for even a moment. She finally understood why Sister Hu Yan and Sister Xianxia usually served him together. This man really seemed to have endless strength and energy. No one would ever know what his background was. Seeing that Sumaner was begging for mercy, Yang Chendong then said with an uncomplaining expression, Since you don't have any strength, then let your husband feed you. But you will spoil Maner like this, Sumaner said shyly, but her face was brimming with a happy smile. I want to spoil you. You have indeed suffered too much in the years that I didn't know you. From now on, you will live the rest of your life without worrying about food and clothing. The happiness that you didn't have in the past will be given to you in double. You only need to accept it and don't reject it anymore, okay? Yang Chendong looked into Sumaner's eyes seriously and said affectionately. There were tears in Sumaner's eyes again. She thought about her previous life. When she was young, she took refuge and had no one to rely on. When she grew up, she had to learn some skills in order to survive. In order to do better, she studied day and night. Later on, when she had a certain reputation, she had to deal with all kinds of men. Sometimes, when she met difficult customers, she would be mentally and physically exhausted. Many sleepless nights because of this. She did not even know what her future life would be like. Would she be like the other older sisters and find a rich man to marry? And then be trapped in a courtyard for the rest of his life? At that time, he was like a small boat floating on the sea, not knowing where his next destination was. Where is the hope of life? What would happen in the future? However, things were different now. She had a husband who loved her dearly. Most importantly, this man was very outstanding. He seemed to be more outstanding than all the men she had met before. Now that he was treating her so well, she really felt like she couldn't find her bearings. Husband, can you really always treat me well like this? Sumaner couldn't believe everything in front of her eyes. She was a little worried about her gains and losses. Of course, I will always treat Maner well. You can rest assured. Yang Chendong chuckled. At this moment, in his eyes, the Sumaner who was bold, wise, and even tolerant had long disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a petite and lovable woman. But no matter which one it was, he liked her very much. Under Yang Chendong's service, Sumaner ate some food. When the sky was completely dark, the two of them lay on the bed again. However, this time, the two of them didn't do anything. This was naturally the result of being considerate. Because of this, Sumaner, who felt that Yang Chendong's body had begun to change, said embarrassedly, Husband, why don't you go look for Sister Hu Yan and Sister Xianxia? Don't let yourself suffer because of me. How can it be suffering? I'm willing to be with you. Moreover, this is the first night that the two of us have truly spent together. Of course, I have to accompany you. Maner. Don't be embarrassed. Why don't we talk? Yang Chendong hugged Sumaner in his arms and said softly. Sumaner nodded lightly and moved her head closer to Yang Chendong's arms. She twisted her body slightly and felt that she was in a comfortable position. Then she opened her mouth and said, Husband, you said that you know everything about Maner. Is that true? You can say that. Yang Chendong nodded. I know that you were originally born in a big family. You have a very powerful grandfather called Su Cheng. He was once the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights in the capital of Nanjing. After Yang Chendong told her everything that he knew, it was Sumaner's turn to talk. Perhaps she was unable to mention these things to others. Now that she could finally open her heart and continue talking, she might as well tell him everything. In the end, without waiting for Yang Chendong to ask, she told him the reason for staying here and the mission clearly. Sumaner's grandfather was Su Cheng. When Su Cheng was sentenced to death, the Su family became a thing of the past. As the only living bloodline member of the Su family, Su Maner had a wish since she was young, and that was to redress the Su family's reputation. For this goal, she was even willing to give up everything, including her body and her only life. Becoming the #1 courtesan was a method that Su Maner wanted to use to achieve her goal. She wanted to use her beauty to build a network of connections and then use those men who had taken a fancy to her to help her achieve her goal. However, as she came into contact with more and more people, her mind became more and more mature. She realized how naive her thoughts were. Those men might want to curry favor with her and even say some unrealistic sweet nothings in order to become her son-in-law. However, all of these were just words for the sake of words. When she really asked them to do it, all of them retreated. Most of the time, before Su Maner could say anything, she would just say that there was a high-ranking official in the Imperial court who was spying on her. This person was also very favored by the emperor and was one of the most important officials. She didn't want to become a canary raised by this person and wanted freedom. At that time, those so-called wealthy guests would all reveal their timid faces. Su Maner was indeed very beautiful and extremely beautiful. She also had a unique and attractive temperament that made countless men unable to stop looking at her. However, this did not mean that they could really sacrifice everything, including their lives, for this woman. Putting aside whether they had the guts or not, such an important official was not someone that those young master and young master, who only relied on their family to have a respectable status, could act brazenly. These people all retreated. They either did not want to get close to her in the future or said that they wanted to help but were unable to do so. In short, under all kinds of excuses, Su Maner was disappointed again and again. Until one day, she finally saw through it. If she wanted to take revenge, it was completely useless to just look for those grand guests who liked her. Because of this, she started to feel discouraged. She even had the thought of leaving this place and finding a place where there was no one to live out her life alone. Suddenly, a group of mysterious people appeared and brought her to a completely unfamiliar place. Su Maner, who thought that she had been kidnapped, once thought of committing suicide to keep her chastity. The other party's leader suddenly said, "Do you want to die? Don't you want to take revenge for Su Cheng?" With just one sentence, Su Maner's will to die disappeared. Then there was a deal to complete the mission and redress the Su family's name. Who is this person? Is it Ingzong? When Yang Chendong heard this, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Anyone who wanted to take his life would have to be prepared to be killed by him instead. No. Out of Yang Chendong's expectations, Su Maner shook her head and denied his idea. With their current relationship, Su Maner naturally would not lie to Yang Chendong. Therefore, when she said no, the sixth young master, who believed that he could see through everything, was a little surprised. Then who could it be? Could it be that it has nothing to do with Ingzong? Yang Chendong still said with some disbelief. It was not that he did not believe Su Maner, but because he believed in his own judgment. There is some connection. At least Ingzong sent someone here before. I can see that he has taken a fancy to me and wants to take me in. But ever since that person came to talk to me, the emperor did not send anyone here. I don't know if this counts as a connection. Su Maner was very smart. From this action, she managed to deduce a clue related to Ingzong Zhu Qizhen. And in that case there is indeed some connection. At least it proves that he should know about this matter. That's right, you haven't found him yet. Who is that person? I don't think his position is too low. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe that he can redress your Su family's name. Yang Chendong nodded. He agreed with Su Maner's deduction, but he was very curious about the identity of the person who took the initiative to speak up. Without making Yang Chendong wait for long, Su Maner opened her cherry lips and said, "He is Menda." Menda? Commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guards. After Yang Chendong heard the name, he immediately said this person's official position. That's right. Su Maner was not surprised at all. Yang Chendong could be so highly regarded. If he even knew about Menda, she would feel that it was strange. Menda, commander of the Southern Ming Embroidered Uniform Guards. It was just a third-rank official position. And when this Embroidered Uniform Guards was mentioned, everyone's first reaction would probably be that they were arrogant and domineering. In reality, the Embroidered Uniform Guards did indeed have a lot of power. The Embroidered Uniform Guards wore tuxedos and had embroidered spring swords at their waists. A sentence like, embroidered uniform guards are handling a case, pedestrians should give way, would probably scare many people. But how powerful was this arrogant commander of the embroidered uniform guards? First of all, in terms of official position, the commander of the embroidered uniform guards was only a third-rank official. His official position was not that high. However, the power of the commander of the embroidered uniform guards was through the roof. It was said that Zhu Yuanzhang was a pure peasant. Because his background was too lowly, he was always afraid that others would not accept him and want to rebel against him. Hence, he established the embroidered uniform guards. The embroidered uniform guards also became an extremely sharp sword in the hands of the emperor. The embroidered uniform guards directly received orders from the emperor. Other than the emperor, they could disobey anyone else's orders. Chapter 405. The authority of the embroidered uniform guard could be said to be a combination of the Ministry of Justice, the Supreme Court, and the Imperial Censorate. They had their own jails, investigation, arrest, and interrogation rights. They directly took orders from the emperor and could arrest anyone, including relatives of the emperor, and conduct secret interrogations. No matter if you were a prime minister or a king, as long as you were targeted by the embroidered uniform guard, they would have all sorts of methods to destroy your family. At the start of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang's prime minister, Hu Weiyong, was extremely powerful, which made Zhu Yuanzhang wary of him. And the mission of pulling out this nail fell on the shoulders of the first commander of the embroidered uniform guards, Mao Xiang. Mao Xiang, as the commander of the embroidered uniform guards, was also very iron-blooded. He thoroughly investigated Hu Weiyong's case, which involved tens of thousands of people and had a huge impact. Unfortunately, after Mao Xiang completed Hu Weiyong's case, Zhu Yuanzhang killed him to appease the public. As Mao Xiang's successor, the second commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Xianxia, also did an earth-shattering case, which was the case of Blue Jade. Unfortunately, he followed in the footsteps of his predecessor and was executed by Zhu Yuanzhang after the Blue Jade case. The commander of the embroidered uniform guard had the North and South guards under him. The North and South guards had 5 guards under them, and the commanders were called Qianhu, Baihu, Zongqi, and Xiaoqi. Normal soldiers were called lieutenants and strongmen. The embroidered uniform guard usually had around 1,000 soldiers, and at its peak, there were around 60,000 of them. In the history of the Ming dynasty, the embroidered uniform guard was something that the officials of the imperial court feared. They were afraid that if they said something wrong, they would be locked up in the embroidered uniform guard's jails. The embroidered uniform guard could be said to be the emperor's killing weapon, and the birth of this organization itself was crowned with glory. To a certain extent, they represented the emperor in handling cases, and their power was evident. Furthermore, the embroidered uniform guard had a complete judicial system and intelligence system, and it was simply heaven-defying. It was because the embroidered uniform guard had too much power that it became something that some people feared. Naturally, it also became something that some people wanted. When Wang Zhan was still alive, he had stretched his hand into the embroidered uniform guard and asked them to handle many personal matters for him. Because of this organization became impure. Everyone wanted to arrange people here, and it was far less powerful than it was at the beginning of the Ming dynasty. At the very least, Yang Chendong wasn't afraid of this department. In fact, he had been an official in the Imperial Secret Service before. However, to many officials and commoners, the embroidered uniform guards were still a lofty existence. In their eyes they were omnipotent. For example, Suma Nair had always thought that the embroidered uniform guards were very powerful. Now the commander of the brocade guards had found him and said that as long as he killed Yang Chendong at the crucial moment, he would send people to reinvestigate the Su family's case and redress their innocence. She believed him and appeared in Yang Chendong's line of sight. Heh, he's courting death. When he heard the name Menda, Yang Chendong didn't panic at all. He was even afraid. Instead, he was filled with anger and killing intent. Since this person wanted to jump out of the stage, he better not let himself touch him. Otherwise, he would definitely chop off his head and kick it like a ball. All right, does Guaning know your mission? He probably doesn't know. I told the public that I came here because I admire my husband's talent and took the initiative to come. He's only temporarily protecting me. Suma Nair shook her head and explained her analysis. Hearing this, Yang Qindong nodded in agreement. Since it was a secret, the fewer people who knew, the better. It was normal for Guaning, who was only a 5th-rank official, to not know about this. Since Guaning didn't know, Kuang Yi probably didn't know either. Otherwise, he, who knew how powerful he was, wouldn't send his trusted aide to send him up. Wouldn't that be handing over his weakness to others? Only a fool would do such a thing. After knowing that Kuang Yi had nothing to do with this, Yang Qindong felt a little better. If even this person, who had a friendship with his father and was indebted to him for saving his life, still wanted to kill him, then he would really lose confidence in everyone in the southern Ming dynasty. Oh right, there was also Yingzong. Obviously, he was a little conflicted about this matter. Perhaps he was also afraid of him, which was why he chose to ignore this matter. It would be best if he killed him, but it didn't matter if he couldn't kill him. That was why he didn't appear. Otherwise, if even the emperor appeared and gave a promise, Suma Nair wouldn't have waited until now to take action. She would have taken the initiative to attack long ago. After finally knowing who the mastermind was, Yang Qindong felt much more relaxed. He hugged Suma Nair's body tightly. "Manair, only Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei and your maid, Xiao Yun, know about what happened today. Just treat everything as a dream. No one will mention what happened today in the future. You can just stay by my side with peace of mind. When the time is right, I will give you a status and marry you. How about that? As for the Su family's injustice, since you are my woman, then I am also the son-in-law of the Su family. Leave this matter to your husband. I will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. How about that? Husband." Suma Nair started crying again. She was still moved to tears. This kind of thinking of her in all aspects melted Suma Nair's heart. She didn't know why, but she actually said, "Husband, you're still thinking about it, right? Why don't you let me serve you? You still have the strength." Yang Qindong said in surprise. Not long after, the sound of spring echoed in the boudoir again. Suma Nair had become one of the 6th young master's women. This matter had become a secret for the time being. Only the 2 madams, Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei and the first guard team knew about it. The reason why it hadn't been made public was that Yang Qindong wanted to numb his opponents. Xianxia still needed a large number of people and military strength to continue developing. Before they met the conditions, they couldn't fall out with the Ming dynasty for the time being. Because of this matter, Hu Yan and Lady Xue had both comforted Suma Nair. They said that their husbands seemed to be able to go anywhere in the world, but in reality, there were too many restrictions. Even in the southern Ming dynasty's capital, there were still 2 madams. Their husband had to take care of all of this. Suma Nair's matter could only be suppressed for now. This was also because Yang Qindong only told Hu Yan and Lady Xue that Suma Nair was sent by the southern Ming emperor to spy on him. It was only because of love that she chose to tell him everything. He didn't say anything about Suma Nair's actions because he didn't want the madams to have any knot in their hearts. Suma Nair's first thought was to redress the Su family's reputation. As for other matters, she didn't care. As long as Yang Qindong treated her well, everything would be fine. Suma Nair's matter had been temporarily resolved. If the Su family's matter wanted to be resolved, they needed an opportunity. They couldn't be too hasty. The first thing they had to resolve was the matter in front of them. After Laizhou Prefecture became an empty city, Yang Qindong ordered a large fire to burn down more than half of the place. To the outside world, it was said that it was done by the remnants of the Huang bandit army. This way, many facts could be covered up. For example, the disappearance of a large number of people could be considered an explanation. After the fire in Laizhou, the people who should have left had to leave. On a flat beach near the sea, Yang Qindong personally sent everyone off. Among them were Suma Nair and her maid, Xiao Yun. Since the Huang bandit army had been destroyed, logically speaking, Suma Nair should have taken action. However, now that Yang Qindong was fine, this woman had to disappear. At the very least, she had to make sure that Menda couldn't find her. Based on the embroidered uniform guard's way of doing things, it didn't seem safe to leave her anywhere. In the end, they decided to send her to Qiqian City. In Yang Qindong's words, it was to let her go there to relax. In addition, she could better display her abilities and capture the Qiqian City military song and dance troupe. This was an outstanding troupe that served the army. If used well, It would be of great use outside of the war. Just based on this, it was worthy of Yang Qindong's attention. To Sumaner, it was a little cruel to be separated after just being together. However, she also knew that regardless of whether it was her own matter or her husband's matter, they were all important matters. In comparison, her small matter was nothing. Sumaner agreed. She didn't cry or make a fuss. She only gave Yang Qindong a long kiss in front of Hu Yan and Lady Shui. This was also a way to declare her sovereignty, telling them that she had truly become Yang Qindong's woman. Gao Xiong and Zhu Fengyong left by boat. Yang Qindong didn't go with them to Ryukyu Island. Although he had always wanted to see the changes there, he didn't do so in the end. He knew very well that his mission hadn't been completed. Although the Huang bandit army had been eliminated, Yu Yan and Yu Lai were responsible for the Yunnan incident. Because the Great Ming Dynasty was now divided into the Northern Ming Dynasty and the Southern Ming Dynasty, many changes had occurred that were different from history. Yang Qindong wanted to interfere in Yunnan's matter and had to do so. However, there was a big difference between being asked for help and taking the initiative to help. If he was too proactive, it would inevitably make people think that he had other thoughts. This would be extremely disadvantageous for what was to come. What he needed to do now was wait. Wait for Yingzong and the Southern Ming court to be unable to hold on. Naturally, someone would come forward to ask for his help. Right now, he had only sent Huang Yuliang's head to Gaozhou Prefecture. At the same time, he brought more than 8,000 soldiers. After Wu Shang's Cold Front Battalion and the Auxiliary Battalion were added, the group had once again expanded and appeared here to stay. Yang Qindong brought 7,000 soldiers and stopped outside Gaozhou Prefecture. This made the original Shaozhou General Yu Guang, who was guarding this place, tremble with fear. Logically speaking, the Huang bandit army had already been destroyed. This Imperial envoy's mission should have been completed. However, he still brought so many soldiers and swaggered outside the city. What was the meaning of this? What intentions did he have? You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.